Well, all right. Now, once again, here is Whitley Strieber. Whitley?
Hi, how are you?
Fine. What a surprise. I would like to introduce to you the man who I guess began all of this in Houston, Texas. He is Chuck Schrammick. Chuck, are you there?
I'm here, Art.
Hi.
Whitley.
Hi, how are you, Chuck? I'm very pleased to meet you.
Oh, I'm very pleased to talk to you, sir.
A couple of Texans, actually.
Actually, yeah.
Chuck, I guess it's been a long, tough odyssey for you.
Well, it has. You know, it was at first. I went through a week there of nobody believing me, and I was kind of dangling out there alone. But
I know the feeling, Chuck. I was in that position about 10 years ago, very unexpectedly, and I did not know it took courage. I didn't know that would be needed. It was very surprising to me at the time.
Yeah, and like you, Whitley, I have a son, 18 years old now, and and I realized, well, geez, if the whole truth comes out, it's going to be strange, because I knew at first that I was looking at something very, very odd here, and if the whole truth did come out, I'd have to say, well, it's really, really odd. It's something I've never seen before.
Chuck, how many photographs did you take?
161.
Have you heard the early part of the show, Chuck?
No, I'm sorry. I fell asleep. I taped it. I'll hear it later.
Well, let me, just for you and for the listeners who have not heard, let me reiterate a proposal I have. We were talking to another amateur astronomer, Ivan Dyer, in L.A., who has been doing this for 45 years and is very much of an expert in terms of the equipment he possesses, and
invented the laserium.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Okay.
A real open-minded type of person is not going to be blinded by paradigms that he doesn't want to see broken.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're interested in is the possibility of assembling a committee of, say, about 5 people like that. I know another one in New York who is more of an amateur astrophysicist than astronomer, Dr. John Glideman, who is has the same kind of open mindset. He's going to tell it like he sees it, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
To look at your photographs and come to independent opinions about what they show, and then to come together maybe on the program and submit reports about what they feel these photographs represent. And then we would have, along with you, a substantial group of amateur experts who would not be threatened by the danger of losing their livelihoods if they made statements about this, and would not be blinded by a paradigm that they're afraid to break. What do you say to doing something like that?
I'd be open to doing something like that.
Well, great, because I can certainly arrange to have I know with that many pictures there'd be some costs involved in reproducing pictures and so on and so forth, and getting them moved around and phone calls, and I can certainly make sure that all of those costs are taken care of.
Okay.
All right, Chuck, let's clear something up for the audience, too, because all of the publicity surrounding Hale-Bopp, since your images, every story that has come out, literally in newspapers from Albuquerque to Phoenix to San Jose to you name it, an Associated Press story, MSNBC did a front page story on it, so forth and so on. They all try to take it on by referring only to your photograph. The release,
one picture. That's the key.
The one picture.
Right.
And they try to debunk it with that, and you know, the obvious quick answer, it was a star. Chuck was mistaken. It was, and there was indeed a software error.
Yeah. Yeah, but there is a star there. But a couple of things. I went back and re-imaged the area, and I saw the star, and it's very dim there. Another thing is the pictures I took, the 161 pictures. Some of they vary in exposure anywhere from 1 to 5 seconds. I was snapping all sorts of different times on there. In every case, that thing, the companion, is the same size. And a star would have grown in size.
Why would a star have grown in size?
The exposure would have made the image grow larger and larger as the pixels sort of spread out there.
Oh, I see. Yes,
with the length of exposure. And another thing I noticed, it's really something to see NASA and JPL actually go out of their way to debunk an amateur astronomer in Houston, Texas. I mean,
yeah. To me, that was incidentally when NASA and JPL got in on it. That was the tip-off that I saw the old cover-up. We must not let the public know there's anything unusual in the universe coming into play, because as soon as I thought to myself, my Lord, how must he feel? I mean, here's an amateur astronomer with a very legitimate and straightforward discovery, who finds instead that the whole they're all throwing dynamite at him for no apparent reason. It must be a very weird experience.
It is. I'm to the point now where I'm just kind of sitting back and enjoying it. At first, I was trying to answer every email, and I was answering maybe up to 20 or 30 an hour.
I know from experience that no matter how good your answer, it will never be accepted.
Well, that's what I finally came to that conclusion.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. You don't need to answer it.
All right.
And one thing, the JPL says that CCDs are more sensitive to orange and the lower light waves, which is very true, because this supposedly was an orange or red star there. But what they never asked me, and what has never come out, is I shot that through two filters, a CCD filter and a green filter. So that star should have been very, very dim.
And indeed, on reimaging, it was, right?
I could hardly find it.
Chuck, let me ask you this: is there enough cometary motion in these pictures for the perspective against the star field to have changed at all?
I've thought of that and just done some rough figures in my head. It probably only moved a couple of pixels, and I don't think it would be anything definitive, but it might show up.
Have you tried to image it again?
The comet?
Yeah.
Oddly, that's another odd aspect of my story, Whitley and Art. I was so driven to get out there night after night after night. I mean, for months I was out there. And it's almost as if my job's over. And I have not gone back out and imaged the comet. Another factor is that where I live here, the comet window of opportunity was getting shorter and shorter and shorter.
That's right, I know
about
that.
20 minutes or so when that picture was taken.
Yeah.
Just because of my trees and the position of my house and what have you.
In other words, it's getting pretty low on the horizon.
Yeah, well, I can't even see it from where I live now. I'd have to go outside of town and get a good, clear western horizon view.
I see. Well, I think even your photograph is not that easily debunked. But when you're talking to a newspaper, it is easily debunked. They just say, "Oh, it was a star."
Oh,
yeah, they're not there to deliver the facts. They're there to debunk. So if you come up with a good explanation for whatever debunking method they've chosen, then they're simply going to choose another.
And then one other thing, Chuck, there's new information that you didn't hear because you didn't hear the first part of the program. But Whitley, earlier in the week, contacted the British, what is it, Whitley?
The Royal Astronomical Observatory at Greenwich.
And early in the week, you'll be interested to know, Chuck, they admitted to Whitley on the phone, yes, there is an object there.
No, quite cheerfully. Oh, yes, we're aware of that, and we're looking into it, was the phrase. I guess you could say at a pinch that the man was simply saying they were aware of the story, but I don't think so. The way the conversation ran, it was clear that they were aware of the object, no matter what they may say in retrospect. At the time I first talked to them, they were aware of the object, in my opinion. That's what I was being told.
It's interesting to see the backtracking done, and of course I read your comments, Whitley, on the Japanese observatory.
Yes.
Yes.
And that odd shuffle. So
yes.
There's something going on. And you know, I followed the web. I sensed back in May that there's stuff going on here because the good pictures started disappearing.
Yes.
The observatories were no longer posting pictures from smaller and smaller telescopes. In fact, the night that a lot of this broke, the night of your famous Thanksgiving broadcast, I noticed that the JPL web or Comet homepage, they threw up a picture, a new picture, and they hadn't had one on there since August. They threw up a new picture, but it was from the observatory in Slovenia, using a telescope not comparable to mine. I thought I ought to donate my telescope to Slovenia.
Well, that's incredible. That I did not know, Chuck. I mean, in other words, what you're saying is the community has been trying to blind us to the actual appearance of this comet.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I have to tell you that to any astronomer who's participating in this and who's listening to this program, and I know from my email that a lot of you are listening to it, you need really to look at the morality of that. That is not a moral act at all. Not in any way. It is, in fact, a form of lie.
Well, and then there's even more evidence. Again, the so-called Hale-Bopp eyes that are on the Hale-Bopp site itself, to the best of my knowledge, have not been explained. Chuck, what about you?
No, I've not heard it, and that was one of the first thoughts that went through my mind when I saw that thing there, because I was aware of that Hale-Bopp eyes picture for several months. In fact, I had a link from my page to the site page.
And it shows an object every bit as bright. Maybe you're a better judge of this than I am. I'm just a layman, but I look at it, and to me it looks like two objects of equal size and brightness.
It's pretty unmistakable, and I have enough experience. And of course, if you even see the star, you can see the star background there. And it's literally within 10 minutes, the thing was there, and 10 minutes later it wasn't there. And the separation on the nucleus to that eye, you're talking about a distance there that is probably comparable to the from the Earth to the Moon, or maybe at least half that distance. So that's it's a bright thing, and it's quite far away from the
on
comet.
Distance scales like that over a period of 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Word.
It's amazing.
So,
and the scale on my picture is similar, about the same type of distance there.
it's hard for the casual observer or the layman to know, because some of them are closer, zoomed in, some are farther away. Now, we can talk about, though we can't yet post the photograph from the top 10 university astronomer, but it shows the anomalous object almost damn near meshed with Hale-Bopp. It actually overlaps a little bit. It's quite remarkable. And Whitley, you've got that.
Yeah, right. It's right behind Hale-Bopp, inside the corona of the comet. It couldn't be very far away at all, even probably within 100,000 miles of the coma.
So it's getting to the point where we've got photographs from at least half a dozen sources, all showing this anomalous object. To me, that adds up to evidence that demands some kind of verdict.
Some kind of sane response from the astronomical community, rather than what we've gotten so far, which is not been adequate.
And I think combined, in my mind, the other major factor, I smelled a cover-up before any of this started, and was wondering aloud, where are the good pictures? And
well,
even
for example, the Hubble
pictures,
has imaged this a number of times. They're supposed to have imaged it in 1996, but practically nothing has been released.
Actually, I think nothing since, October, Chuck?
Well, they have put up some new ones, but they've obviously jacked down the resolution, zoomed out on them. They hurriedly put up some later ones. And it's interesting.
September the 6th one was put up, and I was sent a very condescending piece of email that I should take a look at it immediately, which I did. And I was struck by the fact that it was so poor compared to the usual Hubble imagery.
Right. They must have blown it down considerably. Or that was my initial impression when I saw it. I hate to make assumptions about their work like they have about mine.
Well, from a layman's point of view, it doesn't look like a Hubble image at all. It looks like something taken from a terrestrial telescope.
Mm-hmm.
How are you holding up, Chuck? A lot of people don't know it, but even your career was in some jeopardy.
Well, that was the rumors, but the truth when I got back and talked to all the parties involved face to face is, no, I'm fine.
It's okay.
I'll be back on the air Tuesday morning.
All right. Well, we are glad to hear it, and we will be in contact with you regarding those photographs. Keep them safe.
They're safe in many spots.
That's good.
Great.
Smart guy. Thank you very much, Chuck.
Thank you, Art and Whitley. Pleasure to talk to both of you.
Pleasure to meet you.
All right, there's the man who started it all, Chuck Schrammick. And it sounds as though he's doing okay and back to work and so forth and so on. But I thought a lot of what he just said was rather quite revealing. And I think the people who say it was just a star really have got to examine his photographs of the same area taken under the same conditions, re-imaged, where there is just a star and nothing even remotely like what he originally imaged. And then they've got, if they can answer that, then they've got to answer at least 5 more photographs from various locations that seem to show the same thing. At any rate, there we are.
Well, he has a very ample supply of photographic evidence, and I'm quite sure that a lot can be derived from the photographs that he can offer.
All right,
so that we'll proceed with this committee.
You bet. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Hello, Art Bell.
Hi.
Thanks. I appreciate you waiting for me.
Sure. Where are you, sir?
I'm in St. Louis, Missouri. My name is Justin.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I want to apologize for the oh wows. I have had the opportunity to talk to you on the off year, actually. This is the second time I've called you. Unfortunately, Chuck's not here. I can't talk to him now, but I have a question.
Sure.
Now, there are a lot of people out there who say, who knows what the hell this thing is, but do you have anything? What do you think this thing is?
All right, that's a straight-out question. Whitley,
okay.
What do you think it is?
Hunches. That's what I can give you at this point. I cannot tell you what it is. I cannot make any
definitive statements. What do you think?
Obviously. I have a hunch that this does have something to do with the whole gamut of strange things that we have been observing over the past 50 years, from UFOs to close encounters to crop circles and any number of other different anomalous things that appear to be an attempt on the part of an intelligence that is very, very different from ours in many respects, to communicate with us and to make us aware of its presence.
All right, Whitley, hold it right there and we'll be right back. This is CBC.
Now, here again, Art Bell.
Once again, here I am. A few of the year's best Christmas presents still available. They are the Beijing Radio. It's simple. This is 30 Monday morning. The number is 1-800-522-8863. That's 1-800-522-8863. Do it before they are gone. The price, by the way, is going to go up. It's $109.95, and that includes shipping, getting it to you, an outrageous price. They're selling for $150 elsewhere if you can find them. 1-800-522-8863. Are you tired? Need more energy? In Phoenix, the stonewalling and obfuscation by astronomers and scientists about Hale-Bopp is to be expected. The anomalies that they find challenge their beliefs. The problem arises from their belief that they know how the universe works, and that it is impossible for other beings to traverse the vast distances of space. I submit for your consideration, remember basic algebra. Remember how many exceptions, special cases, fudge factors there were. Well, if you extrapolate those fudge factors, by the time you get to quantum mechanics and astrophysics, I think the scientific explanations may be just a bit off. And when you begin to challenge a set of beliefs that people have built their identity on, you are basically challenging their religious dogma. Ask Galileo. What do you think about that, Whitley?
Well, they nearly lit Galileo up, and I think you and I and people like us are very fortunate that burning at the stake is going out of fashion.
Yeah, we'd already be charcoaled.
We'd be toast. I'd like to get back to this question, is this the familiar visitors or not?
Yes.
This is a real interesting one, and I think here's why I think it may be. Back in arguably they showed up, at least they emerged into our more ordinary world back in the 40s and late 40s and early 50s. There's a certain amount of evidence at that time, judging from what happened in July of 1952 over Washington, that there was some kind of an attempt going on to communicate with the government. Maybe succeeded, maybe failed. in either case, after that, they went underground, and they made a direct appeal to individuals. They began to approach the individual in his most secret, most intimate places, in his home, in his bed, in the middle of the night, penetrating the sexual body of mankind and appealing to the psyche of mankind, as we've discussed earlier, in two totally different ways. Now, here this object comes, and it's a totally different kind of communication, but one that fits that whole pattern, because here it is suddenly appealing for the first time to another kind of social institution, the scientific community, and doing it publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And if they are trying to develop some means of communicating with us and of not simply staring across space at each other like we do with the dolphins and not really know what's going on in the other's mind, but really participating in our lives and us in theirs, it's a logical next step to attempt. Can they break through the paradigm that locks this community into its belief system?
Well, I think clearly, Whitley, we are more approachable than our government is.
Well, sure. That the ordinary individual actually has, I've said it many times from reading all the letters I've gotten, the ordinary person who has this experience, whether they have a good experience or a bad experience, they're much more capable of dealing with it than the authorities. The authorities are the ones who are scared. We're not, actually. We're much less scared than I think that the average man is far less frightened than the average general.
Well, I think that's right. And you can fold into that the astronomical community based on what we've told the audience tonight, what we know to be true. They're just frightened out of their wits. All right. Everybody wants to talk to you. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Hello. My name is Meadowsweet. Thank you for taking my call.
Meadowsweet, huh? What a name.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you, Whitley, and also Art. First of all, I wanted to tell you briefly, this is the first time I've ever been public about this, but I've been contacting and have been visited on a regular basis consciously for a little over a year now, October 9th and 10th of 1995, while I was camping on Mount Shasta with a friend.
You're not alone in that, in two ways.
No.
A lot of people on Mount Shasta, and in the past year, many more people having conscious encounters than before.
It's amazing how difficult it has been for me to find, people to speak with about this that have had personal experiences themselves. So it's been a real personal growth, and I'm writing a book because I channel with them currently also, and I've seen them physically and felt them physically, and I will be explaining everything in my book.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. I guess a lot of people who have these kinds of experiences, as you did, Whitley, feel compelled to relate them. I mean, you did it. You wrote a book. Absolutely.
I did it because I just thought it was, it was really a scary experience, but goodness, it was such a fun adventure too. I mean, I thought the book would be popular. That's why I wrote it. I mean, I didn't know how popular, certainly, but I had no idea that there would be all the condemnation and sort of posturing that went on. Actually, it was amazing. And I'm not surprised to see what's happening with the astronomical community. And it's interesting that there's never, in that community, there's been very little suggestion that this is connected with aliens in any way, at least not overtly. The response is the same because the object is unexpected. And that is the real problem. It's not that they're afraid of aliens, it's that they can't handle what they don't expect.
Well, we're being very hard on them, but with what goes on in the astronomical community, I do understand. In other words, Whitley Strieber can be public about this. You're not going to lose your career. Your career's built on this sort of thing.
Well, it is now, but I lost the career I had and all the friends and all the social contacts.
Well, there you are.
Everything I lost. I ended up, even economically, we suffered terribly from this.
Sure.
So,
but now you're in a position where you can speak out without
absolutely
great fear. Now, Professor Brown, same deal. He's tenured. They might try to get him, but he's tenured. He's fairly safe. And then there's Art Bell. I'm too crazy to care. I'm getting to the point where I just don't care, so I can do this kind of thing. And maybe to a lesser degree prudence because of her situation.
No, she's more fragile, and I think that's a whole different situation.
Yeah, I do too. But the three of us, we can speak out without great fear. Now, if you're inside, if you're an astronomer and you speak out, you're risking everything.
You're risking your career. And a man who has been trained in astronomy, what is he going to do with his life if he can't do astronomy? The answer is he's going to flip hamburgers. I mean, it's a tough call because those guys have a long way to fall if they're pushed out of the nest. They really do. They really do.
So they're careful.
They have to.
And I don't blame them.
No, I don't either.
Wildcard Line, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Yes, Art and Whitley, it's been an absolutely incredible program. I'm calling from just outside of Boston, in Massachusetts. My name is Ben, and I've got a few quick things I want to say. I'll make them really fast. You were talking about Galileo a little while back, and how he was castigated and all. I think we're forgetting, we lose sight often that what we're dealing with in big-time religion, big-time astronomy, you might say, is a form of religion in itself. And in a sense, we're taking on something somewhat similar to, let's say, the Catholic Church or something. There are a lot of really deep-set orthodox precepts that are going to have to be just very gently and gradually dislodged, and it's not going to be something that happens precipitously.
No.
Another thing I wanted to say was just that I think we're all tending to focus too much on trying to get approval from these very same sources with this belief that somehow this will give us, the people that perceive this thing in a different sort of way, more credence. We don't need their approval. We need to go ahead, and they're the caboose in this whole thing. We can march ahead, and it really doesn't matter whether they approve or agree or not. I'm tired of holding back to wait for these cabooses to catch up to us. Let them go at their own speed. If they get left behind in the dust, so be it. So what? Third thing I just want to mention really quickly is back maybe half an hour ago as I was listening to you folks, my mind all of a sudden flashed on something that I've heard in the past. An author, Zecharia Sitchin, has written a number of books. I've never read any of them, much to my regret, but I've heard of him interviewed a number of times, and he seems to talk about some kind of a planet-like object that returns to this region of space, this region around Earth about once every 3,000 years.
All right, sir, we'll hold it there. Go ahead, Whitley.
Yeah, everybody who has not read Zecharia Sitchin's book, The 12th Planet, ought to go out and pick up a copy, or go to the library and get a copy and read it. I've been reading it all week, and I have to tell you, if he's right about this, he is absolutely one of the geniuses of the age. But in any case, it's an absolutely fascinating read that enables you to open your mind to the possibility that this object may be something returning rather than something coming for the first time. A fascinating possibility.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Hi, Art. Hello, Whitney.
Hi.
This is Mark from Illinois on SATCOM.
Yes.
I have two quick things. With the fear of stirring the story up, I'll bet the astronomical debunkers won't Doug and Davis in the media.
You want
a lot of hungry telescopes and binoculars out there.
Well, exactly. They've got an interesting problem this time, the scientific community. And this is, again, why I think it's our old familiar visitors, because they are very good at creating situations like this. The scientific community has really got to address this. My guess is next spring. Mm-hmm. Maybe the object will be gone when the comet comes around the sun. I hope not, because then there'll be a situation where the average individual can get a telescope or a pair of binoculars and look at it. So they have to address it. What is it? They can't ignore it.
It's a tangible thing.
Exactly.
You can't hide it.
Anybody can see. It can't be hidden. And if they end up hiding their head in the sand, then that's what they do. But they're gonna be on the line, and they're not gonna be able to get off the line. The interesting thing about this whole contact experience is it revolves around questions. It creates these impossible questions that you can't get away from. And it's interesting because questions are a form of stress. Evolution is a stress response. And even if we don't answer a lot of these incredible questions that the experience brings up, we do grow because we have to live with them. And the scientific community is about to have that experience, I think.
Okay, Willie, you were discussing biblical references to comets, that sort of a section thing.
Yes.
It's been claimed that Hale-Bopp is on a 3,000 to 4,000 year elliptical retrograde orbit.
Right, the same orbit the same timeline that Zecharia Sitchin's 12th planet is on.
Nibiru. Okay,
yes.
Now let's average that down to 35,000 years for the fun of it, and that would put its last appearance in the time frame of 1500 BC.
I think you mean 3,500 years.
Well, I believe, okay. Well, that's about the time of that's the time frame of the Exodus. And there's an author out there called Emanuel Velikovsky that...
Yeah, that's right. An older author who wrote some extraordinary books.
Yeah, well, the last best one was 1950, Wolves in Collision.
Yes.
And he researched this time frame of 1500 BC, where there was worldwide catastrophes. That's when Moses led the Hebrews out of Egypt, and an unknown story, a thing that's really been kept quiet is like 8 out of 10 Hebrews died. And the rabbis sort of kept that quiet. They didn't want the sword of God destroyed 8 out of 10 Hebrews.
It's also the time when the Minoan civilization was destroyed by a catastrophe.
But anyway, and Mr. Section discusses the Book of Job, which states the arrival of Nibiru from Sagittarius, which Hale-Bopp came from Sagittarius.
All right, well, we'll leave it there, but the caller's right. If you average it out, look at about 3,500 years, the timeline is just right.
It is just right, yes, that's correct.
West of the Rockies, you're on there with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Good morning, Art and Whitley.
Hi, how are you?
I'd like to... question I have is... there's been a lot of talk of the frequency that the signals have been received on, and I would really like to know what those are.
Oh, yes. That makes 3 of us. Now, let me give you what I've got. Whitley, I've got something I haven't told you about. I've got an audio signal, submitted, by a ham, and I'm not sure what to do with it. I'm not sure what it is. And it was received in the K-band area. So I'll just let that sit, and I don't know what you may have, but what I've heard is K-band.
Well, if it's in the K-band area and other hams begin to pick up the same signal, then we've got some.
Well, I would like to make an appeal to my fellow hams. If you guys run into a signal you don't understand, whether it's in the microwave region, or lower, I would like to speak with you. I would like to get email from you. And we can only appeal to those out there who have ears to begin to listen. Hams are very, very, very good at that. And I'm going to be doing what I can, but I am but one ear. We need many to cooperate out there. There's pretty good evidence there is a signal. And Whitley, you back me up here. This astronomer has said there is an unambiguous signal.
That is correct. 2 frequencies. He was very clear to Prue about that, and I questioned her carefully, and I specifically asked her to ask him for the frequency. And it was interesting. She said he was very tight-lipped when he talked about the signal, almost as if he was concerned that he shouldn't speak about it at all, which was an interesting response.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Whitley, can you do 1 more hour, or are you tired?
I'm not in the best shape, but I can keep going.
You can keep going. All right,
sure.
Good. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Hello, Art. It's great to talk to you and Whitley. My question is, this is Craig from Hickory, Kentucky, by the way.
Yes, sir.
My question is, do either of you know whether Dr. Courtney Brown has used his scientific remote viewing technique to determine whether the astronomer will come forward, and if not, you might suggest it to him. And if he's not going to, perhaps you should release the information anyway without giving his name.
All right.
Oh, go ahead, Art.
Well, first of all, they don't need to use scientific remote viewing. They're in telephone contact with the astronomer. Secondly, the astronomer continues to say he is coming forward. He just needs time to correlate the latest data and get his act and his ducks in a row before he releases the information.
Yeah.
Whitley and I are both in possession of a photograph and knowledge about the university. Are we going to release this now? No. The answer is we've decided not to on the pleadings of an awful lot of people. But eventually, we definitely will. And at least I definitely will, and I would assume you too, Whitley.
Oh, sure. If it appears that the system has failed the public completely, and that the man has been compelled or has decided that he must remain forever silent, then of course we will.
And I'm not sure when that is. I mean, the tendency is to want to pin a date on it and say, all right, if it isn't done by, next Friday, we're going to release this data.
Well, I think that if we present the amateur data in a credible manner to the professional community, and it still remains silent, and the debunking becomes obviously irrational, then that's when it's time.
I would have to agree. All right, Whitley, stand by, and we'll get back to you. You've got a good break now, so get yourself a cup of tea, relax a little bit, and we will do one more hour. Now, to get a copy of this program or any program that we do with a guest, you can call 1-800-917-4278. That's 1-800-917-4278. For those who are trying to understand this whole Hale-Bopp business, these particular programs are certainly very useful. And so there you've got it. 1-800-917-4278. We're going to take a break here. Come right back and do one more hour with Whitley Strieber. I'm Art Bell, and this is the American CBC Radio Network.
This is the CBC Radio Network.
Are we really so sure of what's out there? I don't think so. Are we so sure that the paradigms are as we imagine them to be? As we demand they must be? I don't think so. You don't have to put up with it. I know many of you do, but you don't have to. What am I talking about? Do you know Americans have no guarantee? It's getting pretty late in San Antone, probably a little after 4 o'clock.
It's not late, it's early.
It's early. All right, somebody just sent me a fax, Whitley, kind of intriguing. Whitley, what would Hale-Bopp's companion have looked like in the night sky about 2,000 years ago?
It's not a question I could answer, but it's very intriguing. I mean, you mean if Hale-Bopp passed 3,500 years ago?
Yeah.
Well, the interesting thing about that is this. There are two things that are probably true. Probably Hale-Bopp did pass at that time, and there was an upheaval on this planet at that time that was profound, that changed civilization very, very deeply, that brought an end to the archaic age. The Minoan Empire collapsed. The pre-classical, I've forgotten the name of it, the empire in Greece collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
There were upheavals all over the Middle East. There were upheavals in Egypt. All over the world, there were weather anomalies and dramatic changes. There was the volcano at Santorini in the central Eastern Mediterranean blew off at that time. It was, in other words, an interesting period like ours, with the difference that it was characterized by a great deal of natural upheaval, which has not been true of our period so far. Although there's been a fair amount of it, it hasn't been as dramatically aggressive affecting civilization as it was then. We don't really know what the significance of this is now. There's no evidence that the presence of the comet will have any effect on Earth at all. It's going to be as Ivan spoke about earlier tonight, quite far away, 122 million miles, even farther away than the sun, at its closest approach. So what could it possibly do? Maybe we'll escape this time.
Whitley, somebody just sent me another photograph. This is a very, very good apparent Hubble photograph. Whitley, it shows the comet very clearly, and it shows something very, very much like Chuck Schrammick's picture. Now, I have no reference on when this was taken, but it's awfully good. I'll get it up on the web. Oh, my.
Yeah.
Whitley, do you have the ability to receive a photograph by computer?
Oh, sure.
You do?
Absolutely. It can be sent to my AOL address, which is, all of my addresses are publicly known, so it's simply wstrieber@aol.com. I might add to listeners that I get about 200 or 300 pieces of email a day, and I respond to as much as I can.
I do the same thing. It's getting a little difficult.
It is hard, but I also respond to questions placed on the Questions for Whitley bulletin board in my website, which is www.strieber.com. Don't get upset if you don't get a response. Just bear in mind that I'm there and I'm trying.
All right. I'm going to forward this to you as we speak. I don't know if you're capable of getting on a computer while you're on the air.
No, I can't do both at the same time from this telephone.
All right. Let's see. Let's go here. First time caller line. You're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm Doug. I'm calling from Coquitlam, British Columbia.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Strieber.
Hi, how are you?
Truly an honor to speak with you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Strieber, with your experiences of abduction and knowledge of ETs, if this comes to first contact, in your opinion, how do you think that we will be approached?
It's going to be a very stressful experience, and it will be devised that way, because, as I've said earlier, this experience is in its overall structure, it's evolutionary. I think we should be very cautious about the experience, just in general. I always advise that. This is how it appears to me. But evolution, remember, to the creatures that are experiencing it, is difficult. It's only afterwards, when you look at the results, that you think, oh, what a wonderful thing has happened. But while it's happening, it isn't easy. When I saw Independence Day come out last summer, I thought to myself, it's quite possible that the visitors are getting closer and that this has something to do with it. The reason being that when they come into the individual's life, they come on a tide of fear. The first thing that happens to you when usually they're in your life when you're a child, and it's wonderful. Then they go away and they come back again when you're an adult, and it's terrible. And you are then in a position of, you have to overcome your fear. And you do that not by convincing yourself that they're not dangerous, because they won't let you do that. The more you try to convince yourself of that, as it happened to me and many other people, the more dangerous they seem. You have to just surrender to the situation completely. Okay? I think it's going to be tough, but I can guarantee you one thing. We'll get through it. The individual always gets through this thing. You just don't find people who are destroyed by the contact experience. A few, probably. But the great majority of people who have it get through it. It seems impossible, but they do. And they grow from it. Most of them. I think as a species and as a society, we certainly will.
Okay. Do you feel positive about this situation?
Overall, yeah, a tough, difficult situation to handle, but one that in the end is going to have positive benefits for mankind. That's my feeling. There's certain things I don't buy into anymore. I used to really fear the idea that they were going to sort of take us over in some way, but it would have already happened. The problem is, if this is an invasion, they're not using the most valuable tool that they could possess, which would be surprise.
Certainly.
If it was an invasion, it would already be over. If it is an invasion, we have nothing to worry about because they're no good at it at all.
I think it's an invasion of consciousness.
I couldn't agree with you more, and that is why I always say caution, 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 but keep taking positive steps forward, because an invasion of consciousness can be turned to our benefit if we're strong.
Exactly. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Hi, Michael from Columbia, South Carolina.
Hi, Michael.
Hi, Michael.
What a pleasure to be talking to both of you gentlemen.
Thanks.
I'd like to make a comment and ask Whitley a question, kind of a little bit off the subject. But first of all, I think that we as a culture suffer from a little bit of instant gratification, and we want instant food, we want instant entertainment, and I think we want instant answers and solutions to incredibly complex problems.
Yes.
And I really think that, instead of talking about a time frame of a week or so, if this astrophysicist does come forth, I think maybe we could think in terms of maybe a month or two, even more, whatever it takes. And I also agree with an earlier caller who said that we really don't need the verification of any of these astrophysicists to know what seems to be taking place.
Yeah, I meant to comment on that. I agree with that.
Yeah. I think I've been interested in this, as Hoagland says, the anomalous anomalology now since junior high school. I'm 40 years old, and I think a few more weeks or even months won't hurt. Comet's got, 5 months before we'll see it. I think we have a little while to wait.
Well, we'll begin to be able to see the comet with the naked eye rather easily in February. It'll be visible in the morning twilight in January on the low on the eastern horizon.
But sadly, we've got this period of blackout when it's going to be very frustrating.
Yeah,
right. Until about January the 5th. From when, Art? Do you know when it goes?
No, I don't know the precise dates. I know it's about to go away now.
Yeah,
and it's going to be very frustrating. So here we are, stuck with all this. Caller, I appreciate that. I do agree with the premise that we don't necessarily need these people that don't want to have anything to do with speaking out publicly. It can be done elsewise, and I think you commented on that as well, Whitley.
But what we mustn't let the scientific community do is hide its head in the sand and abandon this. They would like to just pretend it isn't there, and that's what they do a lot.
That's exactly what they're doing right now.
They're trying to, but the public's got to keep the pressure up. I mean, that's why I went on in the first place. I thought to myself, I'm going to be accused by my friends in the scientific community of taking this out in the wrong way and causing being counterproductive. And those accusations have come. But I keep saying back to these people, there's data in the public record now. It's there. It's there. Art has brought it out, and it's there. You can't get away from it now. It's there. And that is what we're doing here, and we have to keep that pressure up. When the committee's finished, we come back on, we talk about the results, we make sure that the astronomical community, the scientific community know that the public is out there, that we are aware of this, and that we have substantial, effective reason to believe that there is something going on. In other words, we're looking at sensible data. We're not just dreaming.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell.
Hello, Art.
Hello.
Yes, I've got a question for Whitley.
All right.
Yeah.
Whitley, first of all, my first question is are you familiar with Arthur C. Clarke's novel, like the series about Rama?
Yeah, I think I may have read one of the books.
Okay, first of all, Arthur's first book was, I think in the late 60s, and then he collaborated with Gentry Lee, and I think they're on their fourth book right now, and the whole significance of it was like a visitor, kind of like an emissary, that like a huge cylindrical object that came through like in a cometary path that came around the Earth. It was set in the future, and it kept visiting over and over again like a comet.
Right. Maybe this is the future it was set in.
Okay, I was just wondering if you have any contact. Are you able, like in the same kind of realm of being a writer and science fiction writer in certain different aspects, do you have contact with Arthur C. Clarke? And
it's a very good question. Arthur C. Clarke is in Sri Lanka, of course.
Yes.
Not very accessible, but not beyond accessible either. It's a good question, Whitley. Is there a chance you could contact him?
I don't think so. I've never been in contact with Arthur C. Clarke in my life. I sat beside Arthur C. Clarke during the opening of one of his movies back in the 60s, and that's about as close as I've ever been to him.
I see. All right. What I have sent you on the net, and let me know if it doesn't come through right, but I think it will, Whitley, is something entitled Leaked Photo, hbst19.jpg.
Okay.
That's sitting in your mailbox for later. I think it's an astonishing photograph. Astonishing. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell.
Hi, Art.
Hello.
Let me apologize. I'm on a cell phone, and there's a slight chance I'm in a mountainous area. If I disappear, you'll know what happened.
All right.
Okay. I have a quotation I'd like to open with first, and then I have a question for Whitley. The quotation, it's actually more of a paraphrase. I can't remember the exact words, but it goes like this. All that we have of knowledge compared to what we don't know about the universe is like a candle in the dark, yet it is infinitely precious, for it is all that we know and all that we have. That was a direct quotation, paraphrased slightly, from Albert Einstein. And Whitley Strieber said a little over an hour ago that scientists don't get recognition for things they discover that are unexpected, but rather they get recognition for things that are expected. He also said that when they discover things that are unexpected, instead of getting recognition, they are in danger. They lose jobs and such as that.
That's right.
That's exactly the opposite of the way science does work. I can give you 3 examples.
Please
no one
do.
expected Albert Einstein to discover things such as special and general relativity, yet when he did, scientists all over the world rushed to verify it. Within 11 years of the publication of his theory of special relativity, it was verified in 1917. And 2 years later, in 1919, he received the Physics Nobel Prize. And yet, Albert Einstein was completely unknown at the time he published his theory. In fact, he was working for the Swiss Patent Examiner's Office. He did not have a tenured position. If you'd like a more recent example, I can't remember the man's name, but he is at the University of California, Irvine, and he was doing research on halogen chemistry, and as a byproduct of that, he just accidentally discovered that certain chemicals, and I'm sure you know about this, can affect the ozone layer. And 4 years ago, or perhaps it was 5 years ago, 1991, he received the Nobel Prize for something that was, again, completely unexpected.
And he is still being ridiculed.
Yes, but he received the Nobel Prize. He is still a tenured professor at the University of California, Irvine. And he is also receiving support from very, very many scientists, for example, Carl Sagan. Now, I would also like to give you a couple of names. I would like you to try to get as guests on your show to discuss this, and you seem to be so intent upon attacking the scientific community. I guess I'm challenging you to get some representatives on there, and I actually have 3 names for you.
All right.
All right. The one is obvious, and he can be reached in Ithaca, New York at Cornell University, where he is a tenured professor of astronomy, Dr. Carl Sagan. He's in the phone book. The second name is less well known, but he's a world-famous science fiction writer and also a PhD in physics and astronomy. His name is Dr. Robert L. Forward. He can be reached at the Hughes Research Laboratories in Malibu, California. He's also in the Los Angeles phone directory. And the third name would be another world-famous science fiction writer and professor of physics, again at the University of California at Irvine, Dr. Gregory Benford. He lives in Laguna Beach and is in the phone book. And actually, I can also obtain the numbers of all of these people if you would like me to get them for you. I have a phone book at home with their numbers.
All right.
And I can also put you in contact with, with Arthur C. Clarke through Telex. I have his Telex address and probably could find his phone number. Without going into too much detail, I have a lot of contacts in both the scientific world and the science fiction world.
Believe me, we're happy to pursue any or all of those contacts.
Yeah. Now, I am as open-minded as anyone. However, there's a famous saying, and I don't mean this pejoratively to anyone in particular, but it is possible to have a mind that is so open that the brains fall out. I try to maintain a certain amount of skepticism, and I keep coming back to the fact that there may well be something there, but we seem to be jumping to tremendous conclusions on very little evidence. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you keep firmly in mind that we have very little evidence. All we have is evidence that there is something that is reflecting or emitting light, possibly, apparently in the same region of the sky as this comet.
Yes.
Actually postulate that it's coexistent in the same region of space as the comet and not just apparently, much less that it's anything other than a natural object, you have to go for the simple explanation before you go for the more complex. That's
all right.
Occam's razor.
What is the simple explanation?
The simple explanation is that it is something natural. We don't know what it is. Science can't explain things overnight. As a caller a moment ago said, we do have a culture and a society that is always eager for instant gratification and easy answers. And science, unfortunately, is a system that relies on checks and balances, replication of data.
All right, listen,
things like that.
All right, I think you've got most of it out. We're going to have to go. We're at a break point here.
I'd like to hear some responses.
All right, you certainly will. Thank you very much, Whitley. Sit tight. We'll be back for a final half hour.
Okay.
All right, stay right there, everybody. You're listening to the American CBC Radio Network.
Now, here again, Art Bell.
Once again, here I am. I think the last caller was entirely reasonable with his suggestions regarding Dr. Sagan, Dr. Forward, and Dr. Benford. And we'll pursue those. I think that I do want to say, though, that so far from people of that caliber, we have been unable to get a responsive reply. And in the cases that we have had a responsive reply, it has quickly been taken back. So we are a little suspicious of what information we're able to get from the traditional scientific community, and I think reasonably so. I'm unable to say as a talk show host that this object is some great ship coming to take us all home. I have no idea. I simply have said and maintain now there is enough evidence that I would say an examination by the mainstream community is demanded. Absolutely demanded. Not enough evidence to say that here we have some great alien ship headed our way, but certainly enough evidence to suggest there is something utterly anomalous up there that certain people are very much afraid to talk about. The VTech 900 NDL special white set.
0.
And in conclusion, in response to the last call, I would say if we don't come forward and we don't ask these questions, then who will? Whitley, how would you respond to that last caller?
Well, I think you made a couple of quite good points. The first and the most important one is not to forget that we don't know what this is. It's like all of the stories that go around where everybody's got all the visitors all figured out and where their planet they're from, et cetera. We don't even know what they are yet. We mustn't forget that. Nature has proved to be full of quite a number of strange things, and it might be that this object is a natural object of some very strange kind. That remains to be seen. The second point that he made in making reference to some of the more notable successes in the history of science with regard to opening itself to new discoveries were important too. And I think that it should be remembered that the jury is still out. Initially, the administrations that run these telescopes have backed off of this, probably because they have no support internally and don't know the faintest idea what to say about it. Most likely it's because some of the astronomers involved have not been studying the matter. On the other hand, Charles Schrammick suggests that there has been an effort to conceal the actual condition of the area around the corona of the Hale-Bopp comet, and you can see that in the September the 6th, 1996 Hubble picture that has just been posted of the comet. It does not look like a normal Hubble photograph. It is much less clear. He's right about that. So I feel that while it's true that science has at times successfully integrated new material, in this particular case, it's important that the pressure be kept up, because this is the kind of datum that is easy to just let slide by if you can, because it's too hard to deal with otherwise.
All right. First-time caller line, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Yes, hi, this is Marilyn calling from North Dakota.
Hello, Marilyn.
This is a little bit off the track for Whitley, but what if we turned our world off for a week occasionally to get rid of this greenhouse effect that we're having, the ozone problem so bad? Is that in your line at all, Whitley? Just think about it.
we are going to, just to reply very briefly. Oddly enough, this relates to the book I have coming out, which I really ought to mention when I'm on the air.
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
I have a book coming out on January the 7th called The Secret School, which is about recapturing the innocence of childhood and returning to it armed with the wisdom that we've gained as adults, and it's called Preparation for Contact. It's a whole new way of looking at this experience, and all of those of us who have had childhood experiences, it's a chance to integrate those experiences into the whole structure of our lives, having childhood encounter experiences. With regard to what's going to actually happen in nature, I think that the important thing is that we're going to have to face that the human population has already grown so substantially that we are going to have an incredibly profound effect on nature over the next few years. Nature is going to either have to become a managed system or it's going to go out of control. That is flat. Period.
There are many things that are threatened by such a statement, as you well know.
As I will, absolutely. But I do think that the human species over the past 25 years, as much as we run ourselves down, in terms of the environmental response that we've made so far, we've done quite a bit. And the institutions are evolving. We'll do more. I think we'll win this, but I think it's going to be a near thing. We will learn how many people this planet can hold. We're going to find that out, because I think we're going to get to the limit of human population within the next 50 years. We'll find what that limit is.
I absolutely agree with you. Wildcard Line, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Good morning.
Hi, Art and Whitley. It's a pleasure to speak to you both.
Where are you, sir?
I'm in L.A.,
Okay.
ABC.
All right.
And, well, I'd like to, first, before I continue, I'd like to say, Art, thanks for introducing me to shortwave radio.
You bet.
That was great. I think the caller before the break had a lot of very good points.
Yeah, I do too.
But you know, we're living at very different times right now, so I don't think a lot of scientists would get their same respect as back in those days that what he was talking about. And
well, history is replete with scientific jumps, with discoveries that have been made, indeed, but it's also replete with crucifixions.
Yes, you're right. That's correct. It's a very mixed bag, and it appears that the communities is right now, a lot of different areas of the scientific community are up against data that fundamentally challenge their paradigms. As Einstein's data, to a degree, did challenge some very fundamental paradigms at that time, but not as completely as some of the natural observations that appear to be being made now. So it's a slightly different picture right now than it was then.
All right, caller.
I think like this information is like very important for just the regular people out there to at least be exposed to. Pretty much, I mean, we should know what's going on. I really hate to hear all these things about scientists, like, kind of keeping it down low and, you're not, it's not ready to be released to the public.
All right, well, I don't think that they're doing this in some great conspiratorial way.
No, I don't. I would agree with you there. I think it's all very explainable. You don't have to get into any conspiracy theories to explain it. It's more sociological than it is conspiratorial.
Precisely. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Yes, sir. Frank from St. Louis.
Hi, Frank.
Yes, sir. I'm a 36-year-old African-American, so I want to let you know that you have everybody out here listening.
Great.
And I've been taping and listening to people from Richard Hoagland on down. And Mr. Strieber made a comment that kind of went by earlier, saying that this may be a collective of individuals with one mind and one moral ethic, different from our own. Well, it sounds to me like you just described the Borg.
Well, that's interesting. I was actually talking about that with somebody today. And so the result was that for the first time in my life, the concept of the Borg came into my mind. And for the listeners who don't know what that is, it's something in Star Trek. The Borg is essentially a creature with many different bodies, and it seeks to assimilate other species into its system and to make them all part of it, so that everybody loses their individuality and it all becomes part of the Borg. However, in this particular case, what I think we're dealing with is something that is not aggressive in that particular way. Again, if it was aggressive in that way, we would be part of the Borg now. The way in which it's been aggressive has been in apparently going after the physical and genetic material that we possess. That's where it's been much more aggressive than going after us.
A lot of our mainstream media is rather Borg-like now.
Yeah, maybe they've been Borged, but they're getting a little Borging. In fact, oh boy, I'm going to get shot for that.
Oh, west of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My name's Jessica, and I'm from Pierce, California.
Hi, Jessica.
Hi. I was wondering for Whitley more about visitation. So we're actually off the Comet. I've had them ever since I was a little kid, ever since I can remember. Fortunately, I don't remember anything bad about them. But I was wondering more with you, do these visitations come more on your doing or their doing? Because I don't seem to have any control over it.
Well, it has always been absolutely out of my control until the past about 2 years and 3 years, and it's become much more in my control now. And now they show up in the context of responding to specific needs and questions that are articulated in one way or another by me. Mm-hmm. And they don't show up at other times in my life, at least very rarely. For example, in 1994, I probably had 50 or 60 encounters. Mm-hmm. In 1996 so far, I've had 4. Mm-hmm. And each one of them has been extremely conscious and has started when I was awake. It's been very, very different from the way it was in the past. Mm-hmm. It's much less automatic and arbitrary. It's gradually focusing into a relationship, slowly but surely, and it's beginning to be functional as a relationship.
Uh-huh. The last one that I had, it seemed to come. It was strange. There were these beings that, like the leader or something. I was kind of confused at the time, but seemed to be the leader, and they had me sort of levitated, and they took this metal, like pyramid type shape thing, and they took it from like the third eye and went down my body, and then I don't really remember anything after that. But I know that like a week and a half after that, I was like totally high.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had so much energy, I couldn't believe it. And
well, there's a very specific practice involving opening the third eye that is a matter of connecting that particular part of your body to the solar plexus down in the center of your body. And it sounds to me like something happened to you along the lines of they did that, but really, really well. And you got into touch with some powerful energy from that.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it, and I'm getting ready to actually finally, after 3 or 4 years of struggling with it, to create a videotape about this whole meditation process that I've learned from them. What you described is very familiar to me. And it's important because the opening of the third eye, which is quite real, it's very much of an organic part of the body, is incredibly valuable tool. It not when you open your third eye, you also open your mind, and you begin to become a completely new kind of person then.
All right. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hi.
Hi. Whitley, I feel like I know you. I've read all your books.
Oh, thanks.
And there's two things I want to say. First of all, I read a couple of Taylor Caldwell books where she read 1,500 books to write them, and it was about St. Luke and St. Paul. And after the crucifixion, the sun disappeared from the sky. And this was recorded also in Mayan history.
Mm-hmm.
And the other night, I don't know who it was, but they said this thing will block out the sun. And I thought, wow, maybe that's what it was. You know.
Well, we're jumping to conclusions here, but
yeah, we're going pretty far here. Since it's 122 million miles away at its closest approach, based on the trajectory it's on now, it's not likely that anything like that will happen.
However, if this object leaves the immediate, we've already certainly seen it move around in many photographs.
Mm-hmm.
If it leaves the orbit of Hale-Bopp, then we'll have a whole new ballgame.
That's going to create a stir if it comes out from behind the sun and it's left the orbit of Hale-Bopp and it's still located in the sky. That will definitely cause a stir.
That'll get attention. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Whitley Strieber and Art Bell. Hello.
Hi, Art. Hi, Whitley. How's it going? Yeah, I'm calling from Canada.
Yep.
I'd just like to touch on a point. The astronomer you guys are talking about that is releasing this information. Hopefully. If something were to happen that his career be discredited, or you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
Don't you think come April, when this thing is passing, that it's going to be so huge, everyone's just going to look up the night sky and there it is? I'm sure you'd be able to see it with the naked eye.
It's not clear that the Hale-Bopp comet is going to be that big. Remember, it's going to be very far away.
Mm-hmm.
We'll know by about January the 15th. If you can see the comet with the tail, with the naked eye, on the eastern horizon, about 12 degrees above the eastern horizon, about an hour before dawn, by January the 15th, then you will be able to see it with the naked eye through April.
Yeah, because we're not sure how far behind or away this.
We know how far away it is. We just don't know how reflective the gases are going to be that are coming off of it.
Okay, I have another point, a little funny note for you. In case of an alien attack, the ban on prayer in the classroom will temporarily be lifted.
That's an interesting concept. Let's hope so.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that's where we are, and I'm glad you came on the air tonight, Whitley, because I wanted to update everybody on where we are. Where the astronomer is, why there was no news conference, the fact that it's probably coming up very shortly, and that we are going to, I guess, be patient.
Yes, and the next step, as far as I'm concerned, is to get some other competent amateurs looking at Chuck's data.
All right. Where would be a good collection point for these amateurs who would like to volunteer to be on this committee? Because I agree with you. It's the only way we can get any action here.
Well, I think it probably would be more efficient to send copies of the pictures to them and let them do it in their own context, especially if they all have, some of them will have equipment that they may want to use.
No, but I mean for them to contact us to say, I would like to be part of this. Do you have a facility for that on your webpage? Or?
Not really. I mean, I think they should contact by email, but I actually had in mind that I could find them. I mean, I know a number of amateur astronomers,
right?
And I have 4 or 5 in mind already. But if there's anyone who wants to join this and has got a top drawer 4-star amateur credentials, which to me means the possession and a knowledge of the use of top level amateur equipment and a long history in the amateur astronomy community, then please do write. That would be wonderful.
All right. In addition, if there's any hams out there, I'd be glad to handle that end of it. The ways to contact me are well known, and if anybody out there is receiving a signal, there are a lot of ears, then I certainly want to know about it, and you can believe that we will make it public. So if the hams would contact me and the astronomers would contact Whitley, we'll go from here. Sound reasonable?
Absolutely.
All right, Whitley, you're a real trooper to be up this late. What is it, about 5 o'clock?
About 5 o'clock here. I'm going to go take a nap that's going to last until noon.
Whitley Strieber, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Art. It's been a pleasure to be on, and thanks everyone for listening.
Take care, my friend.
Good night.
All right. That's Whitley, and the rest, I guess, is up to you to sort of chew on and decide for yourself what path you're going to pursue with regard to this continuing information. And we're going to try and drill into some brains out there that you've got to get your butt out the door and take a look at this thing, because it's not something that you have to go search real hard for at the right time. You go out and it hits you right in the eye, as long as you've got a relatively cloudless sky. It is the comet of your lifetime, I believe, and is being undercovered in the media. But moved with his family to Alamogordo, New Mexico later that year, where he lived until his graduation from high school in 1976, then attending the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. After graduating from there in 1980 with a bachelor's degree in physics, he was stationed at various assignments in San Diego and Long Beach. After getting out of the Navy in 1983, worked for 2.5 years as an engineering contractor for the Deep Space Network at JPL in Pasadena, was involved, among other things, with the Voyager 2 encounter with the planet Uranus in 1986. Later that year, left JPL, returned to New Mexico in order to attend graduate school at New Mexico State University, earned his Ph.D. in astronomy from NMSU, New Mexico University in 1992, and during the following year founded and became director of the Southwest Institute for Space Research. Now based in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, the Institute is an independent research organization that strives to enhance the scientific literacy of the general public through the providing of opportunities for direct participation in research programs and through other educational activities. His professional interests include the study of stars like the Sun and the search for other solar systems, including those that may contain planets similar to Earth. He has authored several research papers in this field. He is also interested in the present efforts to identify potential Earth-impacting asteroids and comets, and is currently engaged in initiating a search program for these objects to be conducted from southern New Mexico, and which will include participation by school students and the general public. He, of course, is the co-discoverer of Comet Hale-Bopp. That was in July of 1995. And now from New Mexico, and here to tell us which city will be impacted by Comet Hale-Bopp and which Pleiadian beam ship is lurking behind the comet, carrying thousands of green people, is Alan Hale. Alan, hi.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hope you have a sense of humor.
You have to ask the people who know me. Some might say I do, some may say I don't.
I see. All right. Well, before the night's over, I'm sure we'll find out. Let us begin, I guess, Alan, by airing the fact that we did have differences. We did. Way back when the Courtney Brown affair began, I was upset with you over the Chuck Schrammick business, and I'm sure you were upset with me over the way I handled the news or the information I received from Chuck Schrammick and from Professor Brown. And so all of that did occur, and if you have any comments on it, I think you referred to my program as the Weekly World News of Radio, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had all that happen between us, but it is my view that what's going on in our sky right now is a whole lot more important than any differences we had. And I think we're both willing to let those go, and you've got a hell of a comet out there, my friend. I get every single morning, because of my hours, Alan, after the show, I go out and take a look, and this comet is nothing short of incredible. What is going on? Well, no, take me back. Take me back. I'm sure everybody wants to know to the day you discovered this comet.
Okay.
What was it like?
Well, it was an ordinary old night, really, although it was a very gorgeous one. As in that bio sheet that I sent you, I follow known comets as a hobby. There's usually 2 or 3 or more visible with a decent telescope on any given clear night if you know what you're looking for, and there's overwhelming majority of those things are dinky little fuzzy things that very few people pay attention to, except for those of us who actually do follow and study these things. And I had gone out that evening to look at the 2 comets I was following. If you're familiar with the weather in this part of the country, you probably are. And we get a lot of rain that time of the year.
Oh, well, of course, we have our problems for a while in the Southwest, but most of the year it's good.
Yeah, most of the year it's pretty good, but that time of the year we get a lot of rain in this part of the country. And it was the first clear night we'd had in about a week and a half because of all the rain. And anyway, I'd gone out to look at the 2 comets, and I had finished with the first one and realized I had about an hour to wait before the other comet rose above my house, so I have an hour to kill. And it was a gorgeous night. It can be very beautiful in this part of the country. And I thought I'd just pass the time by looking at some star clusters, gas clouds, various objects like that in the Milky Way, including in Sagittarius. And I turned a telescope towards one star cluster in Sagittarius and looked at the eyepiece, and I happened to see a little fuzzy thing nearby.
A little fuzzy thing nearby.
Yeah.
And I guess we should explain to people, and I'm a layman now, and so you'll have to help me, but fuzzy, stars shouldn't be fuzzy, should they?
No, they're not. Their stars are little points of light, presuming you've got everything focused right.
Sure. Fuzzy thing means generally what? Corona, or is it coma?
It could mean a lot of things. There's a lot of fuzzy objects in the sky: star clusters, galaxies, gas clouds. And the sky is riddled with these things, as any would-be comet discoverer quickly learns. So the sky is completely littered with these things, which is why we have star atlases, which tell us what's where. And which is one of the very first things I did, was to check my star atlases to see if there was anything plotted in that position. And there didn't seem to be anything. There was a star cluster that I was looking at. Of course, that was plotted, but there wasn't anything plotted around it.
There wasn't supposed to be a fuzzy thing there.
It didn't seem to be. So the one dead giveaway for a comet is a comet will move against the background stars over a period of a couple of hours.
Sure.
Since they're members of the solar system. So I went ahead and just sketched the little fuzzy thing and the stars that were around it. And then went into my office to see, go through all the catalogs just to make sure there's nothing cataloged in that position. There didn't seem to be anything.
When did your heart begin to beat a little faster?
It was starting, I guess, to do this as I was going along on kind of a gradually increasing basis. I did one other check because I wanted to see if there were any known comets in that position. So I logged on to the internet, logged onto the computer at the Central Bureau for Astronomical Telegrams in Cambridge, Massachusetts. They're the world's clearinghouse for reporting and announcing comet discoveries. They have all the information that's necessary there. Ran their comet identification program to see if there were any comets in that position. It said there were none. So it was very interesting by this point.
I bet.
I've got an object. It doesn't seem to be anything listed at that position, either galaxies or comets or anything. I actually did send a tentative email to the Central Bureau telling them I had a possible comet at that point. And then I went outside and looked through the eyepiece of the telescope, and I saw beyond all doubt that the thing had moved. So I knew I had a comet at this point.
So now you know you've got a comet. At this point, one question would be, why does Alan Hale get to discover a comet when there's all these great big university telescopes out there? I mean, gigantic telescopes, and yet Alan Hale in his backyard is finding this comet, and they're not. How come?
Usually the large telescopes at the observatories like Cape Palomar or Mauna Kea, and all these places around the world, they're very large instruments with very small fields, and they're dedicated to looking at very specific objects. And they're not engaged in survey work, covering large areas of the sky. Somebody has research projects where they're looking at very specific objects.
So then it's actually more likely that an amateur would discover a comet than one of the university telescopes.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So now at this point, you think you've got a comet. What are the odds that somebody else, the mysterious, I might add, Mr. Bob, and I'm going to ask you about that, would discover a comet at exactly the same time?
Ordinarily, they would be pretty slim, but since this comet was next to a fairly well-known star cluster, really anyone who was looking at that star cluster at that same time, that same night, should have seen the same object.
Would have gone, wow, what's that?
Yeah. In fact, I was surprised that there was only one other report.
Oh, so was that report lodged roughly at the same time prior to you, just after you, or how does that work?
It was after me. Tom Bopp actually saw the object right around the same time I did. We were certainly within a few minutes of each other. And to be truthful, neither one of us really knows who was first because neither of us bothered to check our watches at that particular point in time.
Okay.
But
too excited, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I had an unfair advantage over Tom. I work at home. My computer is here. I went inside and sent an email. I mean, it's pretty quick. Tom was in the desert 90 miles away from anywhere. Had to hop into his car and drive home and send a telegram. So my report beat his by a few hours.
So I take it at some point then, after they had come back to you and told you, oh, yes, you found a comet. Guess what, folks? You found a comet.
Mm-hmm.
Then how do they arbitrate what the comet is to be called, the namesake, how it all shakes out? Mm-hmm. Who arbitrates that?
Okay. Well, there's a long-standing tradition, goes back over 2 centuries now, that comets are named after the people who discover them.
Sure.
There is now a committee of astronomers who are members of the International Astronomical Union who are tasked with the responsibility of naming a comet. And the usual procedure now is we wait a few days till we get an orbit for the comet to make sure it's not some long-lost object that's been lost. We don't want to add a bunch of names to it unnecessarily. So as soon as we have an orbit for a comet, they will then go ahead and name it. And so this is usually 2 or 3 days.
All right. Well, I've got a whole series of questions about Hale-Bopp. The first one is, even some major university astronomers were puzzled that Hale-Bopp went out beyond the orbit of Venus, way out there, seemed to be...
Orbit of Jupiter, you mean?
Jupiter, I'm sorry. Seemed to be so bright, unaccountably bright, outgassing like crazy, more outgassing than should occur for the amount of energy available from the sun to be causing that. And for that reason, a lot of them back then were saying, we think this is first time round for Hale-Bopp.
No, they really weren't quite saying that. The comet was definitely very active and very bright. In fact, unprecedentedly bright for a comet at that distance. Although we do occasionally see comets that have outbursts which blow off material for reasons which we don't entirely understand yet. At that distance, there's one comet that travels around the sun in almost circular orbit between Jupiter and Saturn. And usually it's a very dim object, but every once in a while, every once or twice a year or so, blows off material, brightens up for 2 or 3 weeks, and then fades around again until 6 or 8 months later when it blows again. And there was some thought that the comet was actually something like this. Tom and I just happened to spy this thing when it was going through such an outburst like that. And, of course, it turns out it wasn't. The comet continued to brighten at that point. It didn't fade away.
So then we don't really fully understand the physics behind what can cause that kind of an outburst that far away from an energy source that could cause it, huh?
Well, there clearly are packets of volatile materials underneath the surfaces of these dirty snowballs, as it were. There was some question for a little while as to what was driving all this activity. We knew it couldn't be water. We know that the main constituent of a comet nucleus is water, and we're definitely too far out at that point, part of the solar system, for water to start sublimating.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a question for a month or two exactly what was causing all the activity. Once some people were able to observe this with the appropriate radio telescopes, they were able to see the signatures of carbon monoxide. And carbon monoxide will sublimate at the temperatures at which the comet was experiencing at that time.
Ah.
So
that could be it.
We had a handle within a month or so that, the activity we're seeing is driven by carbon monoxide. The question that I think was in a lot of our minds then was, well, is this really just a carbon monoxide-rich comet? How's the water ratio compared to carbon monoxide? So we had to wait about a year before we really started seeing water kick in earnest, which it did.
How big is Hale-Bopp?
Good question. We really don't know. We can't really see the nucleus in this thing. It's the cloud of material around it is just so thick that we really just can't see the nucleus. If we could do like we did with Halley 11 years ago, send a spacecraft by it, take images, it's very easy to get a nucleus by that way. Comet Hyakutake a year ago came by close enough to the Earth where people out at JPL were able to bounce radar beams off the nucleus and get a return signal and get a size estimate that way. But we can't do that with Hale-Bopp. We're We're not sending any spacecraft out to it, unfortunately, and it's not coming close enough to the Earth to do a radar experiment, unfortunately.
How about a best guess?
The best guess we have right now, and this was taken with Hubble Space Telescope images back in the fall of 1995, with a few assumptions thrown in, the diameter we came up with was something like 40 kilometers or 25 miles. But there are so many assumptions that went into that figure that even people who came up with it said take it with a grain of salt.
Early on, when the comet was first discovered, they were coming up with some pretty big figures. I recall over 100 miles in diameter. And that still really could be?
Probably not. I think the Hubble data that we got from the fall of 95 that I was just referring to suggests an upper limit of about 70 kilometers.
70 kilometers. Still a big piece of ice. Still
a pretty big piece of ice. Again, 40 was the most likely value. Again, put that word most likely in quote marks.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be quite a bit smaller. It depends on how much the surface is active and a lot of things that we really can't tell. So we had to make a few assumptions.
All right. To dispel all rumors that have been floating around on the Internet for a long time, I have a little stack of them here that talk about course corrections.
Okay.
I take it that you've not noted any course corrections thus far with the Hale-Bopp.
Okay. Let me tell you what I believe is the probable start of that whole business. Once the comet's discovered, the idea is what's its orbit? So astronomers from around the world, needs to be both professional and amateur astronomers, will go out and make precise measurements of its position.
Mm-hmm.
Then once we have a baseline of usually 2 or 3 days, we can calculate an orbit and see what the comet's doing. How far out is it? How close is it going to get to the sun, Earth, and so on. Hale-Bopp presented a very difficult case because it was so far out. It was very difficult to get any kind of a decent orbit for it. In fact, the first orbit, which was published, I guess 3 or 4 days after its discovery, did indicate that it was far out and was coming in close, but that it was so uncertain. I mean, really, they had almost nothing to work with.
So in other words, as they refined the orbit of Hale-Bopp, it appeared to some people that these were course corrections.
Right. It was actually just a refinement of the orbit based on the data. It was really almost 2 weeks before Brian Martian at the Central Bureau was able to finally get a valid, decent orbit out of the data he had. I mean, the original orbit that was published a week and a half earlier was based on almost nothing, but they wanted to get some kind of an orbit out just to have a vague idea what this thing is doing.
All right. In my lifetime, there have been a number of comets that have really been given big billing. Boy, the media just went bonkers, and this is going to be the most incredible thing you ever saw. And it poops out. And that has happened several times in my life. Hyakutake was kind of an interesting surprise. But finally, we have a comet that is either meeting or exceeding the expectations, and the media, for some reason, is so silent about it. And we'll address that at the bottom of the hour. That's what I want to ask you about when we come back. You remember that, folks? You remember it's going to be the comet of the century with these other comets? And then all of a sudden, it just sort of, it's like somebody turns the dimmer down and it doesn't meet expectations. Well, guess what? This one does. All these other years of publicity about comets, they were going to be a big deal and pooped out totally. And here, your comet, or everybody's comet, is really living up to or exceeding expectations. And I guess that, too, is a question. And we're not getting the big network publicity that we ought to be getting. What's going on?
I'm not sure I entirely agree with that contention, although I guess I have a biased viewpoint to some extent. I would like to see this thing get as much publicity as it absolutely could. And if you had been around me, say, the past 3 or 4 weeks or so and listened to my phone ring off the wall, you would dispute the contention that's not getting any publicity.
Well, when I said that, I guess I meant I don't see it. Well, all right, you give me the name. What was the name of that big comet that pooped out?
You may be referring to Comet Hale-Bopp back in the early 1970s.
I certainly am.
Okay.
And the networks, NBC, ABC, CBS, they were all hyping it up like crazy. It's going to be incredible. And then it pooped out.
Yeah, although I don't know how much, I don't remember how long before its actual pre-display the press really started coming out in the big. My experience has been the public seems to have a rather short attention span. And even though we've known about Hale-Bopp for a year and a half, and we've known that at least it possessed the potential for a decent display for that long, it seemed like nobody was paying too much attention to it, with a few exceptions, I guess you being one of them, until fairly recently. Now, my experience is now is that the press is discovering this thing, and I have had phone calls and interviews with CNN. I've had discussions with and some of the networks already, some of the major news magazines, and so on. So it is starting to get some publicity right now. Of course, here we are approaching peak display within the next month or so.
All right, that is the next question. What's forecast? If you can do a comet forecast.
Okay. Keep in mind, there's always an amount of guesswork involved, and as my good friend David Levy, who's the Levy and Shoemaker Levy 9, by the way, he has a quote that I really love to use, and that's, comets are like cats. They have tails, and they do whatever they want. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Oh, yes, there is.
The comet is closest to the Earth on March 22nd and closest to the Sun on April 1st, which means that, theoretically speaking, the comet should be brightest right around the end of this month, beginning of April.
Which is the more important date, the proximity to Earth or the proximity to the Sun?
I don't really think there's either that's really more important than the other.
In terms of possible brightness?
Probably the Sun.
The Sun.
Is probably more important than the proximity to the Earth, because it's not, although this is such a big bright comet, I don't think either specific date is more important than any other one.
It's true.
My feeling is that the comet will probably be at its best by maybe the second week of April for a couple of reasons. One is the comet by that time gets high and well placed in the evening sky. And for some strange reason, people are much more willing to go out and see something in the evening than they are to get up before dawn and look at something.
True.
Also, usually a comet will have its best dust tail development after it has rounded the Sun and is heading back out.
Can I ask a dumb pedestrian question? When you're looking at the comet, and it is closer to the horizon, would it be true that you're looking through an awful lot more atmosphere than when it gets up higher and you're looking more or less, not straight up, but more or less vertically?
Yes. So comet is, and for all objects in the sky for that matter, are more prominent when they're above the horizon, so you're not looking through as much crud.
Okay.
So by the second week of April or so, the comet is well up above the horizon, and it's not as close, it's higher up. And you've got, at least if this comet follows the traditional thing that comets are supposed to do, whether or not this one will do it remains to be seen. You'll probably have our longest and our brightest tail right around that time. It seems to be the tail makes the comet more than anything else, at least to the average person.
Oh, I don't know about that. I guess I would have said that before I saw yours or ours or whoever it belongs to. It is spectacular. In fact, people have no idea, those who've been too lazy so far, to get up early and lose a little sleep and go out and look. I took my wife out, who has seen a comet or two, Higadaki and others, and I took her out about a week and a half ago, and she said, holy smokes, or some derivation of that, and that's how surprised she was and how dramatic it is. I mean, it really is dramatic. Now, as you know, I got a really nice Meade for Christmas, telescope, and I find less magnification, more to provide a better view of the comet. I can't quite figure out why that is.
Okay, usually when you have a telescope, you're on an object this size, you're actually cutting your field down too much. You want really as wide a field as you can to grab more of the outside detail, especially when you start looking at the tails and some of these maybe lower brightness structures. When you're putting on a telescope like that and putting on a magnification, you're almost looking right through it. And that really kind of tends to lessen the contrast, and you're not getting as much. Now, a telescope will certainly give you a lot of very exciting views of what's going on in the middle of the coma.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you got...
Actually, it was brighter and much more of a pinpoint with the telescope, more like a star, frankly, and then, of course, I could see the coma, but I was right in the middle of it, so you're correct about that.
Yeah, in fact, if you might have also seen there's a lot of jets going off in that comet, incredible amount of activity going on. It's really incredible.
As a matter of fact, Doctor, the recent space shuttle mission, there was radio commentary, and others have said that they see two tails. Can that be?
Yes. I'm seeing two tails myself.
Oh, you are?
Yes. The tails are made of different substances. The one tail is made of ionized gas. As the comet gets closer to the sun, the solar wind starts to ionize some of the molecules that are being blown off the nucleus. The solar wind blows that back, so you're seeing ions. It's kind of, in a way, it's almost like a neon sign that you're seeing, except different chemicals, different molecules. And that is the tail. It's the dimmer of the tail, at least to the eye. It's the one that's kind of hangs straight. It's the one that's to the north, or if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's the one that's on the left side and hanging straight. The molecules tend to fluoresce in the blue part of the spectrum, where our eyes aren't all that sensitive. So it looks dim to the eye, although if you're in the dark side, you can see it pretty easily. The other tail is made of dust particles that have been blown off the surface of this nucleus, and then being blown off the comet itself. Each little dust particle goes into its own orbit around the sun, and they tend to lag behind the comet a little bit, so you'll see this very broad, curved tail, and that's the dust tail. And that, since that's reflecting sunlight, that tail tends to be brighter to our own eyes than the other tail.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And there were some early pictures taken of the comet that could use some explaining. One was on the Hale-Bopp.com site itself, called Hale-Bopp's Eyes. What's your best take on what that was? It seemed to show two equally bright comets side by side.
I took a brief look at that picture. My feeling is that was just probably an artifact in the electronic CCD camera that was used. I happened to be looking at the comet that very same night that photo was taken, and I didn't see anything unusual about it. So more than likely, at least my feeling is that it was just an artifact, cosmic ray hits, an artifact in the processing of CCD images. I'm not an expert really in taking CCD images, but I've taken some, and a lot of cosmic ray hits, just glitches in the software can produce things like this. So it's not all that unusual.
All right. I want to read you something and see if this makes any sense to you, and have you explain what it means to me. Here we go. This is written by an astronomer named Mike. I can't identify better than that. We lost 3.5 days of our recent observing run due to a winter storm, but managed to obtain a total of 6 hours observing on the comet. The water production rate is running about 1 E31 molecules per second, and the spectral lines are bright. However, the continuum long word of 3 whatever that is, has brightened enormously since January 21st. So the line continuum brightness ratio is small. This is getting tough. Typically 0.1 for bright lines. This is similar to Comet Hyakutake during the IRTF TO team survey in mid-April of 96, in contrast sharply with our PI team, don't fall asleep, folks, data of March 23rd and 24th. We believe, this is the interesting line, we believe we are seeing the signature of organic grain emission in the continuum intensity versus wavelength. What does that mean?
Okay. Organic molecules simply mean molecules which contain carbon. There are a lot of substances which contain carbon. Of course, a lot of the chemicals within our own bodies are carbon compounds. So there's this impression, which is maybe half true, that we're talking organic chemistry, in organic compounds, we're talking life, because life is carbon-based. But there are plenty of other compounds which contain carbon, which really have nothing to do with life. Hydrocarbons, smog, formaldehyde, and various other substances of that nature. We know that comets contain a fair amount of organic materials. During the return of Halley 11 years ago, specifically the spacecraft flybys like the European Space Agency's Giotto mission, detected a large number of organic molecules in and around Halley.
All right, then, let's back way up, and let me ask you, what is a comet? I mean, I know it's made of ice and some of the rest things we've talked about, but why do we have comets cosmically? Where are they from?
Okay, they are the leftovers from the days the planets in the solar system formed about 4.5 billion years ago. If you look out in space, you will see large clouds of gas and dust scattered at various locations, and these dust clouds very often are sites of active star formation. You see clumps starting to break off, starting to collapse. As they collapse and start to spin up, the the material will start to fall into a disk surrounding the central star. And so you have the dust disk, if I said that right, in orbit around a star, and give this as these things orbit around the sun, each dust grain, eventually one dust grain will collide with another dust grain and stick together. Now you have a bigger dust grain, which has more gravity than anything else, and so it is able to attract another dust grain. So then you have yet a bigger dust grain, and give this process a few million years to go on. You eventually have large chunks of material, maybe a few miles across.
Like when you made a ball of aluminum when you were a kid, out of a little piece of aluminum.
Yeah.
All right, is this then part of a continuing process of creation, or is it a result of the old Big Bang?
No, this is the Big Bang. When we talk about Big Bang, we're actually talking about the formation of the entire universe, which it was preceded this by some time. We're talking processes which have been taking place since then, the actual formation of stars. And some of the elements that we see in the gas and dust clouds in interstellar space actually are the result of older stars which have gone supernova and blew a lot of material into space and enriched the material, the gas and dust we see in space. Yeah.
I've seen some pictures taken from Hubble of what appear to be the actual birthing of stars, some of the most incredible photographs I've ever seen.
Yeah, there's that one that I call the lava lamp image. That's a real gorgeous image.
It really is. And is that what it is, the formation, the actual birth of stars? Do you believe that's what we're seeing?
Yes, it is what we're seeing. I mean, of course, the star formation process is something which takes place over a period of tens of millions of years. And, of course, we're here, our existence rate is a very tiny fraction of that.
Yes.
So, and if we were able to come back and look at that exact same part of the sky 5 million years from now, we would see it looking quite a bit different. We'd see stars there that we don't really see right now because those stars will have formed, will start to have blown some of their dust envelopes away, and so on. And this is a process which, on our human time scale, takes an enormously long amount of time, although on an astronomical time scale, it's actually not that long.
Doctor, in the universe, do you think it more likely that life is prolific or non-existent on the scale that we have it here on Earth?
Okay. In a way, this is a matter of opinion because we have a sample of one to work with.
Yes.
Although, depending on how the results are, the Martian fossils that were putatively announced last year, that may give us a sample of two if that turns out to be verified. But my own personal feeling is that we know life got started here on the Earth, and it's hard to believe that life would be so rare, the processes would actually be so rare they would only take place once. If the same physics and the same chemistry that works here on Earth should work everywhere else throughout the universe. Life got started here. Life should therefore get started as long as the environmental conditions are suitable anywhere, really, not in the universe. So my own feeling is that there is probably a lot of life throughout the universe.
Creation, evolution, common, not rare. Okay, enter the comet. Now, is it possible that a comet, remember when you're a kid and you had a daisy, and you went, and the seeds went everywhere? Is a comet possibly a sort of a universal Johnny Appleseed delivering the seeds of life?
Oh, that idea has been batted around occasionally. I don't think there's a lot of support or a lot of evidence for that particular idea. One idea which does have some support among a lot of astronomers is we know that one of the primary constituents of a comet is water.
Right.
We know that the Earth has a fair amount of water, and we know that the Earth was formed by the colliding of these chunks that I was referring to a few minutes ago over a period of tens to hundreds of millions of years. And, of course, during the millions of years that have elapsed since its formation, we know that comets have hit it, and the comets have delivered water. They must have delivered water, since that's what they're made of, to the Earth. So it is very possible that at least some amount of the Earth's water that we have right now is due to cometary impacts over its history.
Is there any other way you can imagine that there appears to be water on the moon?
That would be by far the most likely source of it. Keeping in mind that the reports that came out last year, which I'm sure are the ones you're referring to, the Clementine data, we haven't verified that that's water ice yet. We've got an interesting radar signal. In fact, it was the result of a deliberate search But that's really all it is right now. Now, the Lunar Prospector mission, which is supposed to be launched later this year, is designed to verify that one way or the other, whether or not we're actually seeing water ice at the moon's south pole. If we do, cometary impacts is almost certainly where that water came from.
How big were the chunks, Shoemaker-Levy 9, as compared to what we believe the size of Hale-Bopp to be?
Hale-Bopp appears to be much larger.
Much larger.
Yeah. The largest chunk which hit Jupiter from Shoemaker-Levy 9, I've seen various figures on this, but the one I've seen the most common was probably on the order of about 1 kilometer across.
1 kilometer?
Yeah. Not all that big, really. Of course, there was 20-some chunks of various sizes, and that was about the largest one, so the overall object may have been 3 or 4 kilometers or so.
Okay, well, check me if I'm wrong, but I believe that I read somewhere that the marks left on Jupiter that we were able to observe from these impacts were, some of which were the size of Earth?
Yes.
Size of Earth?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you had a chance to actually see those. Those big scars were visible at a pretty small telescope. It was amazing. Fantastic thing to see.
So then it leads me to the question, which it will not, Hale-Bopp impact Earth or the Moon or something, even Mars, what would happen?
The planet would go on its merry way.
I beg your pardon?
The Moon or Earth or whatever object got hit would just go on its merry way. I mean, yeah, Hale-Bopp is a large object for a comet, say, but compared to the mass of, say, the Earth, it's nothing. It's trivial. It's not even worth.
Okay, the Earth would go on its merry. Would we go on our merry way?
No, we would not.
We wouldn't, eh?
Yeah, it would be pretty bad news for any life forms on the Earth. The Cretaceous Tertiary impact of 65 million years ago, which most of us have now come to believe was what caused the dinosaurs to die out, was probably an object quite a bit smaller than Hale-Bopp. I think the estimates that I've seen usually say something like 6 miles or so.
All right, and we're a whole lot smaller than dinosaurs. Doctor, stand by. We'll be back to you. This is CBC. Saturn-like object, the companion, spaceships following Hale-Bopp, blah, blah, blah. We could go on and on. How did you react?
The first indication I got of anything like this was the morning after the broadcast of your show where this was discussed. There was a radio station in Cincinnati called me about 8 o'clock that morning and asked, what do you think about this mysterious spacecraft that's following your comet?
And what did you say?
Say what?
Say what? I'm sure.
And I started getting phone calls and emails all day long from all over the place asking my opinion of this thing. I thought, well, I want to see what's going on here. So I was finally, through some of the local media folks around here kind of pointed me where this was coming from. I finally was able to look at Mr. Schrammick's webpage, and that kind of pretty much told me everything I needed to know, except for the fact I hadn't seen the image itself. And finally, I was able to track down a copy of that image, and I pretty much recognized immediately what it was. I could tell right away it was a bright star that was in the field. But to me, it's not enough just to say, well, it's a bright star because I said so. I went and dug up what's called the Palomar Sky Survey, has been digitized and put on the World Wide Web. And I went ahead and got on the web, downloaded a copy of that same part of the sky, was able to match the stars in Mr. Schrammick's image with the star field on the Palomar Sky Survey, and sure enough, there is a very bright star in the exact same position as his object.
How did he manage to get that Saturn-like appearance, or what appeared to be rings, when other stars in the same image didn't have them? Why would that have occurred?
Because it is by far the brightest star in that image. The other stars that are in his image are quite a bit dimmer than that. And essentially, once you start overexposing any stellar image on an astronomical photograph, you start to get what are called diffraction effects. If you look at that exact same field on the Palomar Sky Survey image that I was just referring to, you will also see diffraction spikes in the very same star. Again, because the star image is overexposed. and it's just a common effect. It's due to the optics inside the telescope itself.
Then there were kind of a series, the Courtney Brown image aside for a moment, there were a series of other images that seemed to beg questions, one from Japan and so forth and so on, that seemed to show anomalies of varying sorts. And I'm sure you were presented with those or saw them.
Actually, I kind of ignored them.
Ignored them.
Yeah, because I knew that this object was a star, and the whole thing started because that was, the object was a star, and people were starting to see various things in various images. So I was actually out of town during most of this. And
all right, comets are said. Now this is mythology and legend and Native American lore, but obviously comets are said to be harbingers of change, and I'm sure you get a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Could there, at the basis, at the bottom of a lot of what is called myth, there's some grain of truth. And let's see, comets as harbingers of change. Where might such a myth have come from?
Actually, it's not that hard to understand. Put yourself back in the shoes of someone who was living, say, 500 or 600 years ago. The people then were familiar, of course, with the normal nighttime star patterns that they saw and that we see today.
Right.
They were familiar with the planets. They knew the planets moved against the background stars, but people had known of the planet for centuries at that time. Their motions were understood. Now imagine, here's this bright, impressive comet. You yourself are well aware of how impressive Hale-Bopp has been.
Oh, yes.
So imagine something like this kind of appearing, almost from out of nowhere sometimes, being this bright, impressive, beautiful object hanging around in the sky, moving against the background stars like the planets do, but maybe in parts of the sky where the planets don't go, like Hale-Bopp is doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then fading off back into nowhere, say, a couple of months later. I think it was only natural to associate that event in the sky with anything that was happening on Earth. Now, if you think about it, there's always something rotten happening on Earth.
That's true.
There's always a war. Rulers always die. There's an assassination. There's a plague or an earthquake or you name it. And I think it was only natural to associate those events on Earth with the comet that was in the sky at that time, forgetting that 2 years ago, when there was no comet in the sky, there were still bad events happening, but people would make dissociation with the events that happened when the comet was in the skies. And comets ended up getting this bad rap that when there's a comet in the sky, something bad happens.
Well,
and it always does, because there's always something bad happening.
Well, maybe it's a little like the virgins tossed into the volcano business. Volcanoes erupt, and then eventually they stop erupting. And if you throw a virgin in, when they stop, you might conclude, therefore, that the virgin stopped the volcano.
Right.
Same theory?
Yeah. I've had somebody point out to me, kind of tongue-in-cheek, comets are associated with the death of rulers sometimes. That's always been one of the things that comets are supposed to foretell. Hale-Bopp is in the sky. Deng Xiaoping just died.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, now the fact that he was 90-something may or may not have had anything to do with that, but...
That's right. Listen, we're heard all over the world, and I've got a fax here that says, "Hi, Art, Mark from Sydney, Australia. Do you know, or could you please ask Alan, whether I can see Comet Hale-Bopp in the southern skies?" So, what about somebody way down in Australia?
Okay, right now he is out of luck.
Oh.
Hale-Bopp right now is strictly a northern hemisphere object. But do not despair too much. After the comet has rounded the sun in early April, it starts to head south very quickly. We, in our latitudes, will lose it, around the 22nd, 25th of May, because it's heading south. Meanwhile, our good friends like Mark and Sydney will start to pick up the comet very low in their northwest about the beginning of May, and as the weeks progress, it will get higher in the southern hemisphere sky and should still be fairly bright at that time.
However, it is, at that point, leaving the proximity of the sun, right?
Right. So it's going to be fading, and it will probably have faded some by that point, but it should still be a fairly bright and impressive object. And in fact, going back to a comment I made a little bit earlier, it's after the comet has gone around the sun is sometimes when you have your best tail development. So they may actually have a very impressive object, maybe not quite as bright as what we had in early April, but may actually have a fairly decent tail, bright tail associated with this thing.
Are you tempted to want to fly to Australia and see it from there?
I am working on a trip to do just that.
I'll be darned.
I may actually get to meet Mark from Sydney.
I see.
I've been to Australia several times. It's a lovely place, and I look for any excuse I can to go there.
Well, that's a good one. All right. what is the best viewing time for us, and does it vary in the U.S. From where we are in the Southwest, say, to the Northeast corridor or Florida? Does it vary at all?
Not really. It's because the comet's basically visible in the same location from anywhere on the Earth. Just that as the Earth turns, obviously, the hours are different depending on where you're located, whether North America or Europe or wherever. Right now, the comet, as you know, is a morning object, although it is far enough north now that it is starting to become visible in the evening sky during dusk, but very, very low in the northwest. I have not seen it myself, but because I've got mountains in that direction. I don't have a good horizon in that direction.
Right. By when would you say it will be a good evening object?
It should start becoming fairly easily visible in the evening by the 22nd, 23rd of March or so, maybe a little before that.
The closest point to Earth will be how many miles?
122 million.
122 million miles.
Which is 1.3 times as far away as the sun is.
What would have happened if the comet had been, say, as close as Hyakutake came?
Oh, that would be wonderful. If the comet had actually been closest to the sun in early December instead of beginning of April, it would have come as close to the Earth as Comet Hyakutake did around January 3rd of this year. And it would have been impressive, to say the very least, to make a major understatement. It would have definitely been certainly brighter than the planet Venus by far, and may have had a tail which stretched a good halfway all the way across the sky.
Oh my goodness!
It would have been a stupendous sight.
Are we likely to get? It's impossible to say, I suppose, but are we likely to get another comet as neat as Hale-Bopp is right now in our lifetime?
It's possible. Great comets tend to come about once every 10 years or so on the average. We had Comet West in 1976, which was a beautiful object in the morning sky. And then we didn't really have anything for 20 years, and then Comet Hyakutake came by a year ago. Although that was really more of an ordinary comet, which just happened to come very close to the Earth, and we were able to view the tail in such a way as to have a phenomenally long tail across the sky. But by my definition, that was certainly a great comet.
Okay, well, one of the things that I remember about that comet, and I try to follow these things from a layman's point of view, I found it very interesting. They said, ooh, surprise, surprise, Hyakutake is emitting X-rays. Why would a comet emit X-rays?
That is a good question. We really don't know for sure. That was a definite surprise. And we still, although, now let me make a disclaimer here. I'm not exactly an expert on all the different emissions and everything which come from comets, although I do know a fair amount about it. My understanding is we still don't really have a mechanism yet for what is causing the X-rays to be emitted. And for a while it's thought we might just be seeing reflections of the sun's X-ray emission, which the sun does give off X-rays. We thought we might be seeing reflections. I understand that there's been some observations since then which kind of tend to refute that. One of the interesting things is that once the X-rays were found in Comet Hyakutake, some researchers went back and looked through some old data taken by some of the X-ray satellites like Rosette and a couple of the others, and identified X-ray emission in some older comets which had been by over the past several years. But no one had really even thought to look for it.
So in other words, it's likely this is a regular occurrence and nothing specific to Hyakutake.
Right. And although I don't believe anyone's detected X-rays in Hale-Bopp yet, I don't think anyone's looked for it yet. I know there are proposals out there and plans to look for X-rays from Hale-Bopp when it gets a little bit closer.
All right. This may be out on a limb time here, but I'll ask you about it. There are a lot of people who have theories about an energy that is in space, here, all around us. They call it zero-point energy, and that an object traveling through space, a mass traveling through space, would interact with this energy, and could that be one explanation for a source of energy to produce the emission of X-rays?
Well, I'm not really sure I can comment on that because I'm not really familiar with the idea. I kind of tend to discount it. Would not the Earth do the same thing?
Yes.
Would not the sun produce energy because the sun itself is traveling through space?
Yes, I would think so.
Yeah. And of course, we do know the sun gives off X-rays, but that's due to processes going on within its atmosphere, which causes that to happen.
Well, if it's a snowball and there's water and there's various things, it's just hard to imagine where X-rays would come from. They're a very short wavelength.
Yeah, it probably has to do with some of the ionization processes that are going on. Again, as these substances like the water, some of the other substances like carbon monoxide and these other volatiles that I was talking about, as they ionize, we may be seeing an ionization effect, but I'm just kind of speculating in the dark right here, so don't put too much truth.
Oh, that's fine. Look, this is the home of that. Feel free. What do you think of the idea of a space mission? We don't seem to have many space goals these days anymore.
Unfortunately.
That's right. I agree. To land on a comet.
I think it'd be fascinating, as it has been investigated in some of the better science fiction novels I've read. I think it'd be fascinating to really get a first-hand look at what's going on some of these things, and actually seeing these eruptions of material going on and what have you. I think it'd be fascinating. I mean, I've read a couple of science fiction novels where that theme has been addressed when Halley comes around again in the year 2061.
Could it be done?
It certainly could be. The question is do we have the willpower to do so?
The political will, and the money, that's an entirely different question.
Yes, it is.
Are you saddened, as I am, by the great pullback that we've made since the Apollo days?
I would certainly have to say that I am. Of course, I'm giving away a secret here, but I was 11 years old when Armstrong and Aldrin, it's early in the morning here, walked on the moon. And, of course, I was raised I was in elementary school during the 60s. And, of course, this was after Sputnik, which kind of scared the pants off of the Americans.
Sure did.
And, of course, that kind of fed the whole Apollo project to begin with. And I remember watching the Gemini flights and the early Apollo flights. And, of course, I do remember very vividly watching the Apollo 11 mission on the black and white TV we had now on board at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I really had every reason to believe that I was looking at a preview of my own future. And I thought, gee, when I'm those guys' age, I'm going to be off doing things far better than they were.
But it's like it skipped a generation.
Yeah, in fact, I am right now, I'm about a month or two older than Neil Armstrong was when he was walking on the moon. I've got about another month to go, and I'll catch up to what the age that Buzz Aldrin was at when he was walking on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we're not there. I think it's been very frustrating. There's, again, I think a major pullback in a lot of ways. Certainly science education, I think, the way science is being funded in this country. It's a large discussion here. It's a very deep subject, and there's certainly a lot of things. Of course, Apollo was not really science-driven. It was politically driven.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, it was driven by politics. Beat the Russians. I mean, that was the whole goal of Apollo, was beat the Russians. And we got a lot of tremendous good science from Apollo, but that was not the reason it was done.
There also was a news story in the last couple of days, just in case we do happen to go back to Mars, and we're making some attempts now, and collect samples, that those samples, on return, would have to be quarantined because they're worried about infection of Earth by some microbial agent from Mars. Is that a prudent thing to do?
I believe it is. It would seem unlikely, but again, it goes back to the fact that when we're talking about life, we have a sample of one to work with, and you can't do very good statistics from a sample of one. So we really have no idea how any potential life form that would arise in another environment would interact with the life forms we have here on Earth.
So it's prudent to be careful.
Right.
All right, Doctor, we're at the bottom of the hour, so we'll
okay.
For a minute. When we come back, I'm going to ask you about that movie Asteroid and the research you've done on close Earth objects. This is CBC. As part of his bio, I noted earlier when I read it, it indicates he is also interested in the present efforts to identify potential Earth-impacting asteroids and comets, and is currently engaged in initiating a search program for these objects to be conducted from southern New Mexico, and which will include participation by school students and the general public. In other words, lots of eyes. And Alan, did you happen to see the movie Asteroid? Alan, are you there? Hello, Alan. Oh, boy. I've lost Alan. Okay, well, I warned him at the beginning of the program that such a thing could occur. So, what I'm going to have to do is what I do when things like this happen is get him back on the line. So if you will all stand by a moment, we will retrieve Dr. Hale and be right back. I would think that they treat somebody with a last name like Bell better than they do me, but we got cut off. Anyway, I think we're back together again. Dr. Hale?
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm sure you missed what I said, which is a shame. What I was saying was that in your bio, you have begun a project looking for objects, comets, asteroids that might impact with Earth, and you're getting school children and so forth in the American public involved in that. And I'm all for that. Did you see the movie Asteroid?
Yes, I did. I expected to get some questions about it, so I plunked myself down in front of the tube for a few hours and watched it.
Okay. So did I, and I thought, by the way, it started out, at least dramatically, very well. And by the time that movie was over, had I been there, I'd have stepped on that little kid's hands and let him drop into the crater. I was so angry at him. I mean, it's like he went on a straight beeline for the ground zero impact point. I was so angry. Anyway, obviously there are things out there that could impact Earth. We've had a few close calls, and I've been doing talk radio a long time, Doctor, and I remember several years ago hearing several reports about, guess what, folks? Scientists just announced that 2 days ago we had a very, very close call with an object, and we heard about it 2 days after it passed our orbit near Earth. What are the chances that in our lifetimes, something or another pretty big will hit Earth?
It depends on the size of the object. If you're talking something that's 10 meters, 15 meters, we've had 2 hits this century that we know of. Both were in Siberia. If we're talking larger objects, say 100 meters or so, yeah, I'm pulling a number out of the air here, but perhaps every few thousand years we'll have something like that, or maybe even a longer time scale than that. The object which made the meteor crater near Flagstaff, Arizona, was made about 49,000 years ago, and that was about 100 meters in diameter. At least that's what Gene Shoemaker tells me. If we're talking about big objects that are a few miles in diameter, ones that could really wipe us out as far as life forms here on the Earth, we're probably talking about something which happens over time scales of many millions of years, if not tens of millions of years. And the Cretaceous Tertiary impact was 65 million years ago, and that seems to be the last really significant impact. So the chances of it, something like that happening in our lifetime, are probably very remote, but it's not zero.
All right. Let's say, for the sake of conversation, that we identified something.
Okay.
That was headed our way, as in the movie Asteroid. In the movie Asteroid, I was quite surprised. The first time they just let this sucker come in and do what it did to Kansas City, and then they finally decided to act when they saw the second big one. If something the size of that second one were headed toward us, would what they did be a viable alternative? That is, blowing it to smithereens, they thought.
Yeah, you're not going to blow it to smithereens. The best you could probably do is break it into a few smaller fragments, say a half dozen or so. What you do, I think, depends entirely on how much lead time you have. If we have some decent survey efforts going on, of which we're starting to initiate some now, we may very well have a 50 or 100-year warning.
Oh, really?
That's something. Once you identify an object and you calculate its orbit, you can compute its orbit for an indefinite period of time into the future.
All right, I've never been shot with a bullet, but I am told that when you are, you never hear the rifle shot from the bullet that hits you, and that asteroids might be a little bit like that, ones that are headed directly for you. Are they harder to see?
If something is coming directly towards you, yes, it would be pretty difficult to see, simply because the way we detect asteroids is we detect their motion against the background stars. If there's something coming directly at you, it's kind of hard to see that.
In other words, there is no relative horizontal motion.
There's not much to speak of. Yeah. So the idea, of course, is you want to find them ahead of time before that really happens.
Plus, an asteroid is a big, just black rock, and space is black, and I know that may be oversimplified, or is it?
That's oversimplified because the moon is a fairly black object. But it does reflect sunlight.
It's true.
But I don't remember the exact percentage here, but I think it's something like it's less than 10%, maybe as low as 4% of the light that, the sunlight that goes on the moon. The moon is still a bright object in our sky.
You know something about our space program. If there were an object out there, and let's say we had weeks of warning, several weeks of warning, might be reasonable, and it occurred right now. Today we found it. Mm-hmm. Would we be able to do anything significant about it?
Probably not. If you had years of warning, you could go out and perhaps stick a little rocket engine on the thing and give it a bit of a nudge. If you give it a bit of a nudge now, 50 years from now, that nudge makes a big difference. If you, on the other hand, you have a few weeks of warning, there's probably not much you can do. Theoretically, you could maybe launch a few nuclear warheads at the thing. Mm-hmm. What's going to happen is you're going to break it into a few smaller fragments. So you have a choice. Do you have one real big object coming at you? Do you want a half dozen smaller ones coming at you?
Is there a big difference? In other words, would one larger object be a total planet killer? If you divided that into 6 objects, then are you better off? Or does it just take out more cities on more continents?
A large object hitting you, say, 6-mile across object, would probably be a planet killer, at least in terms of the significant life forms on the planet.
Yeah.
A smaller object that we're talking about may wreak havoc over part of a continent, as it were. So you'd have, say, a half dozen hits, some of them which would be in water, which would create tidal waves and wipe out a few coastal areas and coastal cities.
So if we had an object a few weeks out right now, and you were the one in charge of what to do about it, what would you do?
Oh, well, you're going to put that responsibility on my shoulders.
Sure.
Well, I'd probably, if I had the ability to do that, I would probably opt to go ahead and try to break it into smaller fragments. At least it would have some survival that way, I think, whereas you'd have almost a certain planet-wide catastrophe if the whole object hit its one piece.
So if you discount the last ugly, dramatic half of that movie, the premise of the movie wasn't all that far off then?
In some respects, no, because the threat is there. On the other hand, the way the asteroids got here, the comet perturbing their orbits, that's completely absurd.
Oh, it is?
Yes.
Oh, I was going to ask about that.
Yeah. A comet does not have enough mass to do anything like that. A comet's kind of been described one way as about as close to nothing as you can get and still be something. I mean, the mass that these things have is almost negligible.
Well, let's try the question the other way around, though. It does, the orbit of the comet does become influenced by planets and suns and so forth, does it not?
Yeah. I mean, Hale-Bopp's orbit was changed somewhat when it came by Jupiter a year ago. So, yes, the planet's gravity does affect the comets.
Is there a chance that the orbit of Comet Hale-Bopp or some other large comet could be perturbed in an annoying way from our point of view?
By one of the large planets, yes, and it's certainly possible. I mean, look what happened with Shoemaker Levy 9 and Jupiter.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, a number of questions for you by fax, and then we'll get to phones at the top of the hour. At what speed is Hale-Bopp traveling?
You know, I get that question all the time, and I never really sit and bother to try to figure that out. The speed will change depending on where it is in its orbit. The closer it gets to the sun, the faster it's moving. The further away from it is, the slower it's moving. Right now, it is slightly beyond the Earth's distance from the sun, so it's moving at slightly less than the Earth's orbital velocity, and the Earth is moving at 18 miles a second in its orbit around the sun, if I remember the numbers correctly. So right now, I'd put the figure for Hale-Bopp at 12 to 15 miles a second. That's the number I'm pulling out of the air.
Oh, that's really fast.
When it's closest to the sun at the beginning of April, that will increase to, I believe, 26 miles per second. And it'll start to slow down again.
Are there any estimates on how much mass Hale-Bopp is losing per unit of time?
Oh, I've seen some of those, and offhand, off the top of my head, I don't have those. It's in the number of several tons per second.
Several tons?
I believe it. Don't quote me on that. It's somewhere around that. Of course, but by our standards, you just heard me say that a comet's as close to nothing as you can get and still be something. That's on a planetary standard. By our own standards, a comet is still a massive object, certainly something like this. So we can lose figures like that and still lose a very tiny percentage of its mass.
Oh, so as it goes round and round, eventually, if it is all ice, it will. Someday it'll just be gone. Or is there a core? to it?
No, that pretty much is the core. There's ice, there's dust, there's organic materials, and all sorts of junk. It's kind of a mixture of all this junk going through space. But yes, every time a comet goes around the sun, it loses its material, loses some of it, which never comes back to it. So you give a comet going around the sun enough times, and eventually it loses all its volatiles, and it disintegrates. We've seen this happen several times. In fact, it happened rather dramatically with a comet that appeared last fall. And we saw this comet come in. It actually came bright enough to be visible to the naked eye briefly, but apparently it was a very tiny object, and as it came around the sun, just
that was it. It got used up, and
yeah. There was nothing left once it came back from around the sun. There was nothing there.
All right. There have been reports of radio emissions, and I'm not now talking about the unambiguous intelligent signals that one said to be coming from it. I'm talking about in the spectrum certain radio emissions. Is that accurate? Have you heard that?
Yes, and almost all objects in space emit radio waves. The sun, Jupiter, numerous stars, and so on, and comets as well. In fact, as the comet's getting closer to the sun and starts to feel sun's heat, we have some physical and chemical activity going on, and some of the emissions that we see are actually in the radio part of the spectrum. In fact, it was observations in that part of the spectrum which were the first indications we had that it was carbon monoxide that was producing the activity. We detected carbon monoxide lines in the radio part of the spectrum.
Can you tell us what part of the radio spectrum those emissions were most easily observed in?
Oh, boy, I don't have that off the top of my head. I believe it was in what we would almost call the microwave part of the spectrum. If any of my astronomy friends are hearing me, they might be groaning because I just honestly don't have that information in my head right now. But it's somewhere, I think, in the neighborhood of a few gigahertz.
Okay, I was going to guess at 2+ gigahertz somewhere.
It's somewhere in that ballpark, I believe.
Mm-hmm. All right. So your forecast for this comet, and this surprised me when we talked the other day. I had thought that around April 1st at the latest it would be at its brightest, but that is not necessarily so. The truth is, you said, it could continue to brighten through April. Is that right?
Through part of April. My feeling is its brightest will probably be right at near the very beginning of April. It may start to fade slowly, although who knows? Again, these comets do weird things from time to time. But the tail development will probably be better towards the middle of April. I mean, I'm kind of assuming here the comet's going to behave like a typical comet, and that, of course, gets dangerous after a while. But the comet should be a brilliant object at least through the end of April, at least, and will actually still be bright, although fading by May and June still. But.
All right, we will not pass, or will we, through the orbit of Hale-Bopp?
No. The comet is, it's in orbit. It's almost perpendicular to the Earth's orbit. And it's well above the Earth's orbit right now. It will pass through the plane of the Earth's orbit in early May, and that is a point outside the Earth's orbit, and we're quite a ways away from it at that time. Again, if the comet had been closest to the sun in early December, we'd be at those respective close points at the same time, but that's the way it goes.
Would there be, if we pass through its tail, or the tail of any comet, would there be a resultant meteor shower or a shower of any sort?
Probably not. The tail is very, very thin, and we would probably not see much of anything there. We have passed through comet tails from time to time through history. I don't think we've had any unusual effects. But now, this dust that is being blown off tends to follow the comet in its orbit, and if we intersect that orbit from time to time, we do see meteor showers. There's the famous Perseid meteor shower we encounter every August,
right?
Which is due to a comet that comes by every 130 years or so. And that's just dust grains that have been ejected, and then they just follow around the comet's orbit. There's the famous Leonid meteor shower, which is associated with a comet that returns every 33 years, and this seems to be a very tight clump, a swarm of dust that follows the comet by a year or two. The comet was last around in 1965. We had a tremendous meteor shower the following year. And that comet is due back in 1998. We may have another very tremendous shower in November of 1999, or possibly 98, possibly 99, possibly not at all, but we'll have to wait and see.
All right. Here's another one for you. We talked about an impact on Earth of a comet or an asteroid. What about something that just is a real close miss? And by close, I mean something that wouldn't hit the Earth, but would in effect just go knifing right through its atmosphere.
Okay.
What would happen?
We actually had an occurrence of that in the early 1970s. The object is probably about 5 meters in diameter, which isn't all that big, really. Seems to have entered the Earth's atmosphere at a very shallow angle, kind of was passing south to north over the western United States. It got to within about 60 miles of the Earth's surface, I believe over Montana.
And I think they've got some video of that.
Oh, yeah, there's some dramatic video of that. This was in the middle of the afternoon. It was apparently a brilliant object. And then just kind of scooted on back into space. It didn't do anything to the Earth other than turn some people's attention toward this thing.
What about something, say, a mile or so wide? Doing the same thing, or something the size of Hale-Bopp doing that?
Oh, boy. That's an interesting question. I'm not sure I can give the best answer to that. Certainly something past, let's say Hale-Bopp's 25 miles an hour diameter, let's work that figure, and it passes 60 miles from the Earth. It would probably create a lot of heat, a lot of friction, and could produce a few forest fires over good parts of the Earth. It would not be the complete devastation that we had, say, with the Cretaceous Tertiary impact, but there would definitely be some effects, at least in the area under which it passed.
We would regard it as a bad day.
We'd regard a bad day, especially if you were in the area under which it passed. You'd probably be holding your breath, because I'm not sure we'd be able to predict its path that accurately ahead of time. We would certainly be seeing this as a possibility of an impact, and would hold our breath seeing if it really did or not. By
the way, and this has got to be a quick answer because we're at the top of the hour, but in the movie Asteroid, they predicted that it was going to whack Kansas City. And I was sitting there thinking, you know, they can't even properly predict when satellites are, where they're going to impact, and they missed that by continent-size margins. Was that unrealistic that it would hit Kansas City?
I think we'd be able to identify a hemisphere.
All right, very good. A hemisphere. All right, we'll be right back. Dr. Alan Hale is my guest. Stay right there. Mexico, generally pretty good viewing country for Hale-Bopp, and it occurred to me, Doctor, the one thing I haven't asked you yet is a good layman's explanation for everybody out there of how to go find Hale-Bopp in the morning.
Okay, that's actually pretty easy. What you do is around 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the morning, let's pick 4:30, good round even time, you go out, look in the northeast, somewhat above the horizon in the northeast, and you don't have to do anything else. You will see it. It is the brightest, just about the brightest object in the entire sky right now. I think Mars may be brighter and Jupiter's brighter, and that's about it. And you cannot miss it.
That's right. It is a very serious item. How do you think that the present brightness in the morning sky will compare to the best moment in the evening sky when it moves?
If it continues to behave itself, that is an if, it should still be quite a bit brighter when we see it in the evening toward the end of this month and early April than it is right now. And we still have quite a ways to go.
Wow. People are never going to forget this. And you, and just then we'll go to the phones. Let me ask you about that. You are forevermore going to be associated with this comet and known by this comet. How do you feel about that?
It's an interesting feeling. Of course, I kind of got the approach that I still have a life to work with and live for the next several years. Yeah. And then some of the work I do that's with the Southwest Institute and everything.
I assume on balance, though, it is an advantage.
Oh, certainly. I guess one of the neatest impressions for me is that we know from studying the comet's orbit that it will be back in about 2,400 years.
2,400 years.
And which means if you want to see it, you better see it now. It's a long wait before you get a chance to see it again.
Any idea how many times she's been around?
At least once.
At least once.
Yeah, and that was about 4,200 years ago. And the reason that's different from the 2,400 figure I just gave you is I mentioned a little while earlier that it passed close to Jupiter last year on its way in, and that's shortened its orbit period somewhat.
Are we able to predict where it will cross next time?
It will come in on pretty much the same orbit that it came in this time, so somebody looking in 2,400 years now should be able to find it somewhere coming up from Sagittarius.
Oh, all right. Well, I could go on asking questions forever, but I'm not going to. I'm going to turn it to the audience. First time caller line, you're on the air with Dr. Alan Hale. Where are you, please?
Hi, I'm Bob from Minneapolis. And
Hello.
Good morning, Art. Good morning, Dr. Hale.
Good morning.
I have an interest in comets, and I'd like to ask you a question, basically a little about cometary theory. Did the impact of the comet Shoemaker-Levy 9 into Jupiter last year, the many pieces that were all strung out, would that be a result of a single nucleus being broken up by the gravitational forces on its previous orbit, or could that possibly be a demonstration of Thomas Van Flandren's theory that the nucleuses may be composed of many pieces that are all gravitationally attracted to each other?
Oh, good question.
I'm not extremely familiar with the Van Flandern idea. I think that's a fairly old one, which at least some of the more recent observations seem to have thrown out, specifically the Giotto flyby of Halley back in the mid-1980s. The feeling about Shoemaker-Levy 9 is that this was a single object. It has been in orbit around Jupiter since the early 1920s, and I'm kind of pulling these years out of the top of my head here. And on its previous close approach to Jupiter in July of 1992, it passed close enough to Jupiter that the tidal effects resulting from Jupiter's gravity were, in fact, able to rip it into the several pieces that we saw when the comet was discovered about a year later.
Okay, so then you don't subscribe to the Van Flandern model, which suggests that a comet is made up of a lot of little pieces orbiting together.
I think at this point the evidence seems to argue against that. Again, we have not seen much in the way of cometary nuclei. I guess the closest we have, again, the Giotto flyby of Halley and the other spacecraft 11 years ago, and also when Comet Hyakutake came by the Earth a year ago, to my knowledge, there was only one signal that came back from the Goldstone and radar bounce experiment.
Good answer. Anything else, caller?
No, I'd just like to say that for all the listeners, get out and see this comet. It's one of the most spectacular sights you'll ever see, other than maybe a total solar eclipse. Those two have to be the best.
Good for you.
If you're in Mongolia about this time, actually in about 20 hours from now, you will get to see both.
Wow. I also understand that in the middle of March, there will be a nearly full lunar eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Will that be an interesting time to view the comet?
Yes, it will. That's on the night of the 23rd.
The 23rd?
Yeah, and the comet will be in the evening sky, although fairly low. But we'll have an almost total eclipse of the moon. Not quite. It'll be very deep partial. And yes, full moons have a tendency to wipe out objects like comet tails.
Right.
Everything, but here we'll get a brief respite while the moon is in eclipse.
So it'll be a doubly good reason to go out and take a look-see.
Right.
All right. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Dr. Alan Hale. Hello, where are you, please?
Thank you. Mr. Bell, this is Robert. I'm in the San Joaquin Valley, California.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Hale, it's a pleasure, extreme honor to meet you, sir.
Thank you.
A man of history.
Sure.
Ordinary guy. But
well, sir, before I ask my one question, I feel it's an important question, hopefully you can help us with it, I just want to quickly say, Mr. Bell, that I found out today that all of Japan, for the past 2 weeks, they have been very excited. The news is not telling us here in the U.S. that they found, I don't know if it's a city, 260 miles of roads over in Okinawa. You might want to check into that.
They found what, please?
They said that below the sea, off of Okinawa.
I've been hearing rumors of this for some time, and I think there was a guest on the Laura Lee show that was talking about this, and I spent a decade of my life on the island of Okinawa,
yes, sir, I know.
I'll be looking into it. Anyway, your question?
Yes, Doctor. With the recent addition to Hubble, I heard on news releases that they are viewing Hale-Bopp. Do you have any information as to what actually is going on through Hubble?
All right, yes, that is a good question. The new additions to Hubble, apparently better vision, able to look at different parts of the light spectrum, or I really don't know.
Specifically the infrared.
Infrared, okay.
Yeah, that's the main the installation infrared camera. I'm not directly affiliated with Hubble, but my understanding is that there's a certain shakedown period to test the new instruments, make sure that everything's functioning normally, that there's no serious problems have developed from installing the new instruments. And I presume, although I'm not really in in the know right here, that we're still in the middle of that shakedown period. As far as observing Hale-Bopp with Hubble is concerned right now, we have a problem in that you don't want to take a chance on pointing this expensive high-tech equipment at the sun and burning out all your detectors, because you would do that immediately if you even got close to the sun. So there are constraints on how close can we point to this instrument to the sun that we don't want to take a chance of getting anything closer. And that figure, as I understand it, is 50 degrees. And unfortunately, Hale-Bopp is within 50 degrees of the sun right now. In fact, has been for 3 or 4 months and will continue to be within that 50-degree forbidden zone, as it were, for another several months, and does not leave that until later this year.
So when Hale-Bopp is close, we are not going to be able to point Hubble at it.
Right.
Oh, that is sad.
It is. It would be great. Of course, we got some interesting images of the comet coming in with Hubble, and I'm sure, although I guess I can't speak for the scientists who are actually going to be putting for time on this, but I'm quite sure they're going to be observing it as it recedes.
Let me ask you, Doctor, about a rumor that's out there that after your discovery of Hale-Bopp, along with Tom Bopp, and I've got to ask about Tom Bopp, that people went back and looked at some old plates and found Hale-Bopp from a deep space photography done by large telescopes long ago. Is there anything to that?
Yes. Once we had a decent orbit for the comet, it was then actually a simple procedure when we knew where the comet was at past times. And one image of the comet was identified on a photograph taken with a telescope at Siding Spring Observatory, New South Wales, Australia, in April 1993, when it was well beyond the orbit of Saturn. And I've seen that image. In fact, I reproduced that image in the book. And it's clearly a comet. It's definitely a fuzzy object thing there. It's clearly there.
So what's the answer? They just didn't notice?
Right. If you take one of these large photographs of a fairly wide field of the sky, covering quite a bit of area, and there's fuzzy objects all over it, galaxies, and so on. Now, a comet can be noticed because during, say, a 50-minute exposure, it moves and it's trailed. The image is trailed. Well, Hale-Bopp was so far out at that time that the trailing was negligible. If you look at the image very carefully, you'll see that it is trailed. But someone who was looking for a trail of a comet will be looking for something a lot longer than this.
Fair enough.
So it possibly someone did see it, but passed it off as one of the 2,000 other galaxies which show up on that same photograph.
So they could have been the discoverer, but they weren't.
Theoretically.
All right. We in the media, you're fairly prominent, Dr. Hale. Tom Bopp, on the other hand, is not. I mean, Bopp is almost like a mythical character who is never seen and never heard. Is there really a Mr. Bopp?
He's an incredibly nice guy. He's very nice. I had not heard of Tom. I don't know if he'd heard of me or not prior to that infamous night. Tom is an amateur astronomer who works and lives around Phoenix and was out with a few of his friends when he found the same little fuzzy object that I did around the same time. And we've gotten to know each other. We've met on a few occasions. We've done a few joint appearances, and he has done a few speaking engagements on his own. He's a quieter guy than I am. He knows how to keep his mouth shut, whereas I don't. And but he's actually an incredibly nice guy, and helping with this world pedestal that we're both being put on for a while.
It really is going to be a kind of an interesting couple of months for you now. Because I think even though the media at a gigantic level has not yet grasped this, they're about to.
Yeah, they're in the process of doing that right now. I'm getting, like I say, quite a few interviews. I give 3 or 4 interviews a day right now.
Really?
And I'm getting, the phone does not stop ringing, and it's only going to keep getting more and more interesting.
All right, well, you haven't done it, so I'm going to make you do it. You have authored a book about this comet, and I think it's called Everybody's Comet?
Yes, it is.
And tell us a little about the book.
Okay. It's, of course, I had to capitalize on this thing like anyone. The next section is, where do I look, how do I look, when do I look, and so on.
Sure.
So that's the thing that most people will probably be interested in. I have a brief afterword where I talk about my own personal view of this thing, what this has meant to me. what I'd like to do with this. Again, that's a very personal thing. And then I've got a few appendices, various other sources of information, a timeline. I had to use a few technical terms throughout the course of the book, although I tried to use those as little as I could. I do have a glossary which explains anything out of the ordinary. And an appendix about some of the work I'm doing at the Southwest Institute for Space Research, or at least what I'd like to do.
All right. Where is your book available? How do they get it?
Okay, it should be available in bookstores. I know Barnes & Noble is carrying it nationwide.
All right.
I think some of the other chain bookstores are as well. I know because I know I've done a couple of book sightings at a couple of these other places. It is directly available from the publisher. That's High Lonesome Books in Silver City, New Mexico. They have a 1-800 number.
All right, go ahead. Let's hear it.
1-800-380-7323. That's off the top of my head. I'm about 98% certain that that's correct.
Oh boy, it better be correct.
Well, I can go double check real quick.
At the bottom of the hour break here, you better check.
I can do that right now while we're talking, so.
All right. You sort of stopped when you got toward the end there, and you said I wrote about what this comet means to me. So that sounds like an awfully good question. Phones, I'm coming to you in a second. Hold tight. The question is, Doctor, on a personal level, what does this mean to you?
It's given me a chance to actually make a career out of science. I guess if I could put it in a nutshell. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, that I was one of those who was inspired by Apollo and so on to go pursue a career in science, and there were quite a few of us in our generation that were inspired to do just that. And so we went through all the rigors of college and majoring in one of the sciences and going through graduate school. And let me tell you, graduate school is no picnic. It's definitely a lot of work.
If this turns out to be your legacy, and we'll all end up with some sort of legacy, whatever we're remembered for, it wouldn't be that bad, would it?
No, it would not. Certainly getting my name on something like this. Of course, I'm still approaching this in the idea that I've got I'd like to think another 30 or 40 years of my life left.
And there's other comments out there.
Well, I've got something I want to do. I formed this organization, the Southwest Institute for Space Research, about 3.5 years ago, for the very pragmatic reason that there are no jobs for scientists these days. And in fact, I really can't encourage any student to pursue a career in science because the employment prospects are so bad.
Oh, that's awful.
It is. And a lot of us, we're inspired by Apollo, but as you pointed out, there's been this major cutback.
Sure.
A step backwards, kind of, as I look at it. Yet in a society that is more dependent upon science with each passing year, when you get right down to it, with all the new technology and everything that is coming out, and people who don't really understand how science operates. And so I think it's all been tied up in the fact that there's very little work for a person that goes through college and wants to contribute to our knowledge about the universe. So, and it's not just astronomy, it's a lot of science.
Well, here, let me tell you my situation. I've been in electronics, microwave, all my life. And when I began with electronics, those were the days when you sat down and you built your own gear, and you went out and you bought parts and you designed something, or you took somebody's circuit and put it together. Those days are long gone. And I'm long lost in terms of present-day state-of-the-art electronics, and most people are. In other words, we're down to black box technology. If something goes wrong, you either throw it away or pull a module, if it's worth enough, and replace a module. But you don't understand how you fixed it. And that seems to have been what's happened to science. There's very little room anymore for the layman. It's very, very specialized. Is that occurring across the spectrum?
Somewhat. I mean, I can only offer a perspective on astronomy, I guess. Astronomy is actually one place where the amateur, as it were, can make contributions. I mean, we do have CCDs available these days, and there are actually quite a few amateur astronomers who are making quite a few good contributions and discoveries. I can't really speak for some of the other sciences.
So you would encourage somebody to become an amateur astronomer, but not necessarily to pursue a full career in science?
I would love to be able to do that, but with the employment prospects currently being what they are, no, I cannot.
God, that's sad.
Yeah. So that's kind of why I went and formed this organization. I wanted to have a career in science, and by golly, I'm going to have one way or another.
Well, so in a lot of ways, you've got a lot to thank this comet for.
Absolutely.
All right, hold on, and I promise we'll lay into the phones when we get back. So if you have a question for Dr. Alan Hale, co-discoverer of this incredible comet coursing through the cold space above us, come now. Trooper, I know it's an hour later there, so it's going to be pretty late. Are you normally a night? I would guess you're a night person.
Yeah, us spacey guys have to be, I think.
That's right. That's the time that you've got to be out working. So what do you generally, when you have the time, are you generally up into the middle of the night?
Usually, I usually work better that way anyway. But of course, I'm up in the day a lot too. That's when I interact with the rest of society.
Mm-hmm.
But, I spend a lot of time in front of a computer, so.
Very much like my life, actually. All right, east of the Rockies. I promised to the phones. You're on the air with Dr. Alan Hale. Hi.
Hi, Art. This is Mark from Collinsville, Illinois on TechCom.
Hello, Mark.
Hello, Art. I just came in from the outdoors, set my binoculars up, so excuse my shakiness. Very cold outside.
Oh, it is, yes.
I'll let my binoculars adjust. Mr. Hale, I have a few quick comments, or in fact one comment and several quick questions, if I may. With no disrespect to your discovery, Mr. Hale, I would like to suggest to you that this comet has already been named from its possible appearance in the middle of the second millennium BC.
Well, with no disrespect intended, I'm sure he is Dr. Hale.
Dr. Hale, yes. And there were many worldwide accounts of a great comet that fits the description and orbit of Hale-Bopp. I would advise everybody to, or challenge everybody to do their homework. All you got to do is go to Pete Dalton, in fact. And another question. Could you explain...
Well, no, wait a minute. Let him respond to that. You're saying that it's no new deal.
Well, it's been out there since 1950.
1950. All right. Doctor?
Would you care to cite the source of this?
Well, Immanuel Velikovsky, for one.
Okay, I have a tendency to discount the works of Velikovsky. He had a lot of ideas which have since been shown to have been unverified. The idea that, for example, I think that Jupiter emits comets.
Well, yes, I agree with that. But his accounts from the middle of the second millennium are not myths. They're actually oral tradition and rock art and whatnot of a worldwide catastrophe. And descriptions of, horsehair, the raging bull, which this comet has got the two horns, and there's descriptions of it rising from the east and growing bright and heading north. But I would suggest everybody to look into it. And my other question is, could you explain why NASA has cut off pictures from Hubble since October of '95?
Well, he just explained that. Did you not, Doctor?
Yes. In fact, there's Hubble images from as recently as October 1996.
What about the work of Sitchin, Zacharias Sitchin? Any comments?
Be truthful, I have not read it, but I have read critiques of some of his work, and I have a tendency to disbelieve that type of thing. I don't really necessarily see the evidence there. Again, I've not necessarily read the work, but again, I've read critiques of it, and maybe I shouldn't overblow that too much. As far as a previous return of Hale-Bopp, yes, we do know that it was around once before. Unless there's a specific amount of positional information which can identify an object as this comet, there are lots of comets. Comets with two tails happens all the time. Almost every comet that comes close to the sun develops two tails, so that is really nothing unusual.
And we don't have the name of the guy who might have seen it the last time it was around.
And the tradition... The tradition of naming comets for the discoverers goes back 2 centuries, not millennia.
Yes.
The orbit we have tells us that Hale-Bopp was around 4,200 years ago. My understanding is that there has been one record of a comet from the year, I believe, 2192 BC, but that there's not enough information, at least at this point, to tell us whether or not that's a record of Hale-Bopp or whether it's a record of one of the other great comets that certainly must have been around at that time.
All right, Doctor. I would be remiss if I did not ask you the following question, and that is, you spend a lot of time looking at the sky. A lot of people don't. They look straight ahead, they drive, they don't look at the sky, so they don't see things. But you're a guy who's looked at the sky for a long time. Mm-hmm. There has been a UFO flap going on in this country since Roswell or before. And with all the time that you have looked at the sky, have you ever seen anything that you just flat couldn't explain?
No.
No.
I've seen a lot of very interesting phenomena. Just a couple of mornings ago, I was actually looking at Hale-Bopp, and which was in the northeast, and over in the northwest, there was this brilliant spear of light coming up from the horizon, disappearing into the sky, and leaving a large trail of material behind it, and which got all twisted and everything. It was a rocket launch from White Sands Missile Range, which is not too far from me.
Yes, we see something just like that from Vandenberg here.
And I've seen things from Vandenberg when I lived out in California. But I've seen that. I've seen brilliant fireballs, which leave trails, which then get distorted by atmospheric winds. I've seen lithium and barium ionization experiments conducted in the atmosphere.
Sure.
Re-entering satellites.
Sure.
Auroras. We had an aurora here a few years ago. It was like the whole northern part of the sky is on fire, and I realized that the listeners that live in the more northern latitudes go aurora, big deal.
Yeah, I know. They know all about it. I lived in Anchorage. I saw you. It is a big deal, actually. It's beautiful.
Yeah, here in New Mexico, we get them once every few years, and it was very impressive. We had people calling in UFOs when they saw this aurora. I've seen a lot of these very fascinating natural and man-made phenomena, but I've never seen anything that I couldn't explain.
Couldn't explain. All right. Now a pretty sensitive question. You're a very mainstream kind of guy. Now you've discovered a comet. That goes by your name forevermore. Very mainstream. If you saw something, honest answer call for here, that you absolutely couldn't explain, would you report it? Would you think real hard before you reported it from a career point of view?
I would certainly report it if there was something that I could not explain. I mean, I have what I like to think is a fair amount of knowledge about the universe around me, but I certainly don't know everything. And science as a whole does not know everything, doesn't even come close to knowing everything. There's certainly a lot of things that we don't understand.
Right.
So I would certainly report it to my fellow astronomers and let them know, hey, I saw something. What do you think of this? And it would depend on whether it was a one-time event. If it was just a one-time event that never was repeated, I would kind of have a tendency to just distrust my own senses.
There you are. That's I guess what I meant. And though even though you thought you saw it, or even if you were sure you saw it, if it wasn't repeatable and demonstratable, it would be career-threatening, would it not, to report it?
I don't think it would be career-threatening. I mean, it's just the way I approach things is I know that our senses can sometimes deceive us. There have been times when I have been almost sleepy and I've almost felt detached from my own body, and yet it's just a state of, I have like 3/4 of sleep, and my consciousness starting to slip away from me a little bit.
Sure.
And we can be deceived by our own senses. We can be deceived by our own preconceived notions from time to time. I guess it would depend upon the situation. I mean, if I actually had photographs of the thing and some sort of records which I could show to someone else, I would certainly feel no hesitation at all about calling up some of my astronomer colleagues.
Oh, that's good. Physical evidence.
What do you think? What do you think about this? I mean, I saw this. I'm not quite sure what to make of it. What do you think?
Okay. All right. Fair answer. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Alan Hale. Where are you, please?
I'm in Sacramento.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I appreciate that, Dr. Hale. I wanted to double check with you. That was the Southwest Institute for Scientific Research.
For space research.
For space research. Mm-hmm. Is there a web page involved?
We are just putting one together. I actually have a colleague of mine in Memphis who has put up a very temporary one. It's very much under construction right now.
Okay.
But I would certainly give you the URL for that.
Oh, yes, by all means. Go right ahead.
That's http:// just like all web addresses are.
Yes.
www.spaceportmemphis, all together, no breaks or anything, .com.
Spaceport Memphis?
Yeah, it's a colleague of mine that found a host in Memphis. We'll be moving that to New Mexico, presumably at some point in time, the not too distant future. But meanwhile, you find a host when you can.
Okay. Are you taking now regular photographs of Hale-Bopp?
The only thing I'm doing to take photographs of Hale-Bopp is I'm sticking a 35mm camera on a tripod and opening up the shutter.
Really?
For 30 or 40 seconds.
Really?
And you can get some gorgeous pictures that way if you have a bright enough comet.
Instead of, and see, I went out and bought this camera attachment for my my mead, and I've been so disappointed in what I saw in the mead that, that's a very, very good idea. So you say a regular 35, what speed film?
Pretty fast. I've been using 400 or 1,000.
400 or 1,000, and how long an exposure?
30 or 40 seconds. You start getting much longer than that, you start to get trailing. Okay. And you don't want to do that.
All right. Well, that's a really good tip. All right. First,
if I may, in my book, I've got some examples of some comet photographs I've taken that way.
Okay.
And in fact, I have a lovely picture of Comet Hale-Bopp that I managed to take the night it came by the North Pole a year ago. But I was able to get away with a 5-minute exposure without trailing, but that's kind of unusual.
Wow. Depends, I guess, on the state of the atmosphere.
And it depends really on how far north it is. Hale-Bopp is far enough north we might be able to start getting away with maybe full minute exposures without getting trailing, but with the setup I just described. So.
All right. Well, I'm out about 65 miles east of Las Vegas, a little town called Pahrump, Nevada, where we have very, very clear skies. Frankly, more so to the west than the east. Toward the east, we've got a bit of a glow from the city of Las Vegas, even that far away. But the skies out here are remarkable, and when it comes up in the west, I'm going to try exactly what you just suggested. Okay, first-time caller line. You're on the air with Dr. Alan Hale.
Hello, Art.
Hi.
Hi. I'm calling from Prince George, BC, Canada.
Yes, sir.
And we're getting a really nice view of this comet up here. Like, it's about an inch long in the sky to the naked eye.
Would the view that far north, Doctor, be any different?
It would be higher in the sky. And from that latitude, I believe it may be circumpolar now. It may not set. It may stay above the horizon all night. My caller might be able to tell me that.
Can you see it all night long?
No, it comes up about 3:30, and then it's gone about 6.
Yeah. Within a week or so, you will be able to see it all night long.
Right on.
All right, well...
Be far up and far in the north along the northern horizon, but you will be able to see it.
All right, well, if we have the time, we would attract some calls from Fairbanks. That's way up north. I presume they would be able to see it all the night long.
Mm-hmm.
All right, west of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Alan Hale. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Art. Jack from the Oregon coast. I'm in Fogsville, unfortunately.
Yep.
And good evening, or good morning, I guess, is Dr. Hale.
Good morning.
Yeah, are you related in any way to Hale's observatory?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question.
Okay.
I've never really investigated that.
Okay, well, the one thing I did want to ask you, though, is only had one question for you. My mother, she's long dead now, but when she was a little girl, I guess it was, back in, somewhere between 1908 and 1915, she remembers seeing Halley's Comet.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm about right on the dates because she was hearsay for me. And she said it was phenomenal back then.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that, or would you say that it's anything like this, the Hale-Bopp comet?
Yeah, that's a fair question. A comparison between Halley's then and Hale-Bopp now.
Okay. If you were to look at the two comets under identical circumstances, Hale-Bopp is far and away larger and brighter of the two. But, of course, we have different circumstances. Where is the comet in relationship to the sun and the Earth when it's closest and all that? It is possible that your mother might have been referring to another brilliant comet that appeared in 1910 called the Daylight Comet of 1910. It was visible during the day for a while.
Oh, my.
On the other hand, Halley was very well placed in 1910 and there was a period of time when it came fairly close to the Earth, and our viewing geometry was such that the tail stretched a significant distance across the sky, and at least put on a very good show for at least a brief period of time around that time.
So a comet could be bright enough to be visible during the day.
In fact, I have seen Hale-Bopp telescopically after sunrise.
I began to wonder about that the other morning myself. It was so bright that you would think, it's not as bright as Venus, but it's getting there.
Yeah, it's bright enough to see, at least telescopically, after sunrise. I don't know if it's going to get bright enough to see with the naked eye during daylight, but there have been occasional comets that have gotten that bright, although it's usually been for a brief period of time.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Dr. Alan Hale. Hi.
It's a very pleasure to be on the air.
Where are you, sir?
I am in Leavenworth, Kansas.
All right. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, what I'm doing is getting rid of my radio.
Okay, that's good.
You got to turn it completely off, correct?
Yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
Very good.
So, Mr. Hale.
Yes.
Isn't that a great discovery that you discovered out there?
Subjective question. Yes, it is.
Well, I certainly consider it great from my own personal perspective. On the great grand scheme of things, perhaps not, but it's certainly one that's getting a lot of attention right now, and I am very glad of that.
Well, I was able to observe it yesterday morning, just before sunrise. It was in the eastern, southern part of the sky.
Southern? It should really be more than the north.
Well, from where I was at, where I looked at it, it was just above the horizon.
Okay.
Is that the correct place to look?
By sunrise, it's actually quite a ways above the horizon.
No. I'm just trying to say that I saw it, and I know that was Hale-Bopp.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Well, I know that it is, I'm pretty sure.
Did it have a long tail with it?
Yes, sir.
Well, good chance it was then. There's nothing else, Doctor, is there, in our sky right now with a long tail?
Nothing with a long tail. I mean, there's a couple of the planets that are fairly bright. Jupiter's kind of low in the southeast right now during dawn, and it's bright, and Mars is over in the west at that time. And Hale-Bopp is in the northeast. Of course, the two planets are just points of light. At least to the eye they are.
May I ask about, we're so low on time now, but I want to ask about this. Venus, of course, is very bright. Morning sky Venus, or evening. If you look at it and just stare at Venus with your eyes, there is an optical thing that begins to occur. And Venus looks very much like it's moving up and down, sideways, and all over the place. And it's some sort of optical conclusion, I guess, that what is it that does that?
Good question. I haven't encountered that. It's probably just your eye, whether you know it or not, the eyelid is constantly blinking at a very fast rate.
Right, that's true.
And that's probably what you're seeing. The eye is not an analog sampler. Your eye is a digital sampler. It samples things at a very phenomenal rate. Yeah.
So, in other words,
you're probably seeing something associated with that. Maybe just your eyes getting tired of staring at this object
the
whole time.
So that may account for the many reports of that being a UFO.
Yeah, in fact, Venus is probably the most commonly reported UFO of any object.
You did acknowledge earlier in the program that there's a great likelihood that life is fairly common out there. Are you surprised that we have not yet encountered some serious evidence of that life in the form of radio signals, or radio signals are the first thing that really comes to mind?
Not really. Depending on who you talk to, the chances of a life evolving some sort of sentience like we have here on Earth, some people seem to think that's likely, some people think it's not, and again, we're dealing with a sample of one, so it's really hard to get any kind of feel for how likely that would be. To me, though, I think the biggest detractor would be that consider that the entire lifetime of the Earth, 4.5 billion years, and consider how long of that span there has been a species that's been capable of sending out radio signals.
Not very long.
20 or 30 years out of a span of 4.5 billion.
You bet.
And for us to receive that, some other species would have to be in that kind of a span right at the exact same time we are.
And, of course, we may well pass the need for that kind of communication radiation within another 100 years or so.
Yeah,
Doctor?
and there's no way to know that. And how typical are we? We don't know that either.
Great. Doctor, it has been a pleasure, and I would like to have you back again and again as the comet does its thing over the next couple of months. So if you would agree to that, we'd love to have you back.
We could probably work something like that. I don't see why not.
All right. Dr. Hale, thank you.
You're welcome.
And good night. From the high desert, folks, a very good location to view the comet. I want to thank Dr. Alan Hale for being here, and he will be back from the high desert.